Everybody, I am Mary Sullivan, City of Darien Alderperson for Ward 5. I serve as the chairperson for the Administrative Finance Committee, and I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Administrative Finance Committee as a whole to discuss the budget of fiscal year 2023. With all the city alderpersons present, our mayor, city treasurer and clerk, city administrator. We also have our Dan Gombeck and Chris Throm from the Municipal Services team, and as well as our clerk, Organo. We will review, discuss, and conduct Q&A and come to a consensus on the fiscal year 23 budget. The document you have all received is a collaborative effort with Mayor Marquez, City Administrator Vanna, Treasurer Corn, and city staff. I will serve as your facilitator. Tonight is the first in a series of meetings that with the end goal being to have a public hearing on the budget for fiscal year 23 at the City Council meeting for a vote of approval on Monday, April 4th. My goal is to complete this review in 2 meetings if possible, and we will attempt to conclude our meeting tonight by no later than 9:30. We will take a few breaks along the way, and if any time someone needs a break, just please bring that to my attention. The next committee as a whole meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday, March 1st at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers. And then it will be the subsequent Tuesdays if we need additional meetings, and those are scheduled and published on the city calendar. Tonight we will begin with the department expenditures starting in order of City Council, Administrative, Community Development, Municipal Services, and Capital Projects. That's our lofty goal. Ideally, we will get through all of these. If time allows, we will then cover water funds and motor fuel tax. The police department will be covered at our second meeting next week, March 1st. Many of the items in this year's budget were discussed and hashed out in our goal-setting session last fall. All city council members received copies of this budget along with summary pages and supporting documents. All of this information has been published on the City of Darien website. These meetings are being broadcast on DCTV Channel 6 and available for viewing on the Darien website and YouTube channel. So without any further ado, we'll get things underway. Mayor Marquez, do you have anything to add at this time?
No, I think you gave an excellent introduction, and we're looking forward to getting through those areas tonight, and hopefully we do.
Okay.
Hopefully we conclude this so that we could get this budget approved in April.
Great. Treasurer Corn, do you have anything to add this evening?
Not at this time.
Okay. And Administrator Vanna.
Just one reminder, as the council's going through the budget, there's some of the numbers in here are from hard bids like truck numbers and things, but a lot of these other numbers, especially the revenues, are estimates that we've made and are probably a month old already. So as staff goes through the next few weeks or so, and I look at the revenues, we'll make adjustments to those and revisions. Most things are pretty close usually when we estimate, but so a lot of the numbers you see here are reasonably close, but they won't be exact because again we have to estimate for like 4 months of revenue, but and we use historical data on that, but so they'll be pretty close.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is a public meeting. At this point, we don't have any public in the audience, but if we do, we'll bring that to our viewing attention and see if they have any comment, or if there is a podium set up that if they want to come to the podium and ask a question. Okay. Without further ado, we'll get started with the general fund summary, which is page number 1. Okay. So, reviewing the summary page, we have fiscal year 23 budget request, a revenue of $15,406,568. Department expenditures totaling $14,458,513. And fiscal year balance, $948,055. Beginning fund balance, $6,228,750. Ending fund balance, $7,176,805. with a transfer to capital of $3.4 million, with an ending fund balance of $3,776,805. Any discussion on the general fund summary? Brian?
Yeah, just to point out the budget year we're in now that's ending May of '22 has revenues in there from a year ago. It was very hard this time to predict and estimate revenues with COVID. So many things were changing. We were very conservative when we did the budget last year. As you could see, the estimated actual and revenue far exceeds what we budgeted. That's obviously a good thing for us. And that will all carry forward. The total expenses, again, are significantly lower than the approved budget, which gives us that strong fund balance at the end of '22. And again, any balances left over, they do get worked into the next year's budget. So that fund balance becomes a number that would go into the fiscal year '23 budget request. And when all those numbers are said and done and calculated, again, that fund balance of $3.7 million is about what we shoot for a 3-month reserve. Give or take, that's, a few bucks on the high side, but we try to stay about $3.5 million in the general fund.
Any questions for Brian on that? A lot of this he did also highlight in the memorandum that was issued with the budget packet dated February 11th. Okay. On page 2 and 3, then you get the breakdown by account of the various areas.
Mary?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't quite sure when the right time would be to interject on this, but probably based on this first summary page.
Yes.
What I'd like to look at and call the council's attention to, I know everyone knows about it, and we've actually been pretty fortunate, knock on wood, I hate to say you're fortunate because of COVID, but if you recall, a couple years ago, we stopped all our capital projects because we weren't sure what was going to be coming in revenue-wise, so we had a 1-year delay on that. We also received a $1.4 million this current fiscal year, and we're receiving another $1.4 million next fiscal year from the federal government as a result of all these programs that they've had. So essentially, it's bought us 2 years worth of time, the 1 year that we delayed and the $2.8 million that we're receiving from the feds. If you do notice, though, over the course of the 3 years, what you're saying in terms of revenue on the current year, Mary, is correct. But if you look at the amount that we're transferring to the to the capital improvement fund for the current year, we're projecting about $3.4 million. Next year, it would go to $1.2 million, again, assuming all the numbers hold out. In the third year of the budget, though, it's only $500,000. And I'm going to jump ahead. I'm not going to ask you to do this, but I think you'll understand as I say that. Even with those funds being transferred, currently we're projecting the capital projects fund, estimating that the balance in the capital projects fund at the end of the current fiscal year will be approximately $10 million. But continuing on with all our normal programs that everybody seems to like and agree on in terms of the streets and the sidewalks and everything else that we do, our basic infrastructure, that runs about $3.4 million a year. And if you get to the end of the third year in this budget that we're looking at, the fund balance drops from the current amount from $10 million to about $3.4 million. What does that tell me, and what would that tell you? That tells you that at the end of the third fiscal year, we have enough in the fund balance to go 1 more year out. So again, assuming all these numbers in here are gospel, we have enough to do what we do for 4 years. However, that next year, our capital projects fund usually runs about $3.5 million in all those ordinary projects. So in that 5th year, we have 0 fund balance left, and at that point, we would have to look for either more revenues or cutting back on projects. So as we're looking at these things, as we do find savings, if you can't come up with any savings, it's only going to help push that farther out. But again, if you look at the big picture right now, this current fiscal year is looking outstanding. But as you do get 3 years out, you realize that at the end of that third year, you've got enough, assuming these numbers hold out, enough to do things for 1 more year after that, and then some decisions have to be made.
Thank you, Mike, for pointing that out. And that is, very valid to see. That's why we, in the budgeting process, and that's why the staff and Administrator Vanna always provides us with the 24 and 25 so that we can, obviously plan for next year, but also keep in mind decisions we make today also impact things down the road.
Right, because I know we tend to focus on, which is rightfully so, we focus on the current year, but again, as the big picture, it's important for people to keep that in the back of their minds as we're looking at all of this.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Any other questions on that? Yes, Mr. Klistek.
One quick question. We had a long-term road and ditch program that I think ended last year that we consistently spent around $1.5 million. So that's sort of gone away, right? So that sort of saves us $1.5 million that we don't use anymore.
Well, but if you look at the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, if you look at the numbers, Brian's already factored that in. The current year, we do have quite a few ditch programs finishing them off.
Okay.
But then as you look into the 3 years, those numbers have been deleted from that at that point. So it's not like we magically have another $1 million to go into it at that point. Again, if you've looked at the numbers across the few years.
And as we get into the capital projects fund, Dan will go over those,
Yeah.
all those in conjunction with the roads.
Yeah, for example, I'm just looking at the capital projects fund. For the current fiscal year, we're looking at $1.8 million, which is more than we usually spend, but again, piggybacking it with the roads, it finalizes it, but that's for the current year. And the next 2 years in the budget, there's zero reflected in terms of expenses for that. So the 3.5 million does not even include the ditch projects at that point. So, does that answer your question?
I think so.
Yes, Alderman Gustafson.
The sales tax, why are we showing such a big decrease from 2022 to 23, 6.3 million to 5.8?
That is,
It
the
would go
six,
up.
the 6.2 is our best estimate now. Like I said, we still have a few months left, and my practice has always been budget conservatively on the revenues. Should those revenues come in higher, again, like this current year we're in, those would be available for transfer into the capital projects fund.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
I would think that's going to go up substantially in 23.
I tend to agree with Brian's number. I'd rather be a little more conservative, maybe to address your.
Be too conservative and then have to cut a bunch of stuff just
Well-
because that number on top is light.
Well, let me give you, for example, why that number could be higher. Because if you notice, prior to COVID, it was 5.3 million. We budgeted only 4.9, and we're projecting 6.2, but Brian is projecting 5.8, so he's projecting a cutback of $400,000. Well, the last 2 years, if you recall, people got a lot of checks in the mail from the government. I mean, all those 1,400, all those 1,600,
Okay.
and everybody was saying, everybody's spending that money, retail and everything. This current year, if you look at what economists are saying, they're saying people have sort of bought everything for their houses, now they want to get out again, and they're more likely to go on vacations and spend it more in the service sector as opposed to the retail sector. So that, in my mind, would justify a reduction. I hope you're right. I hope the number does come in higher, but I cannot see justification for raising it beyond what the number is this year based on all the
Yeah,
money
I would at
people.
least raise it up to this year's. I think, Brian, you'll get a little better idea on that in the next 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get one more month
One
in
more
to
month
compare
in.
to last
All right.
year. I might have that month in already. I don't know from the documents
Okay.
I'm looking at. But as Mike said, I'm more comfortable with that number. And then going out in years 24 and 25, I factored in a bit of an increase for those years. There's nothing worse than overestimating revenues for budgeting.
Okay.
And, again, we try to get on the spot. We try to be very reasonable, but we do err on the conservative side.
What about down in court fines? I see there's a drop there too. I think we now have a dedicated code enforcement person, don't we? So why would the fines go down when they go up? If I think I've got that person going to be here full year now this year.
Well, those are mostly police fines. We don't.
Those are court
Yeah, we have
fines?
not issued many fines from code enforcement. We try to work that out with residents. That's a small part, but even that is up this year
it's
from
up.
the budget amount. And
But it's at 2021 level though too. It's right back up to that level. Just
Yeah,
the
that-
budget was low in 22.
yeah, that is one of that has been more difficult to estimate really because of COVID. At a certain point, things slow down, and this particular year now, there's just been a lot of enforcement from the police department, and the tickets have gone up.
The other thing I've heard, Brian, and maybe you've heard this too, is that a lot of the courts were closed during COVID. They were shut down for 2 and 3 months. So people's cases were getting postponed, and then once they freed it up and heard them, now you had, again, probably more than 1 year's worth of collections in that 1 year time period.
Any other questions on that? Brian?
Yeah, just to highlight a couple of the revenues, and Eric just brought up sales tax, which, again, this year for the city of Darien is a fabulous number in sales tax. We're really glad to have that. It shows good things in our business community. The first item is real estate taxes. As has been for now since 2009, I believe, the city has not raised the annual property tax. So whatever the county gave us last year, that's exactly what we asked for next year. Now, if you see that first line in years 2 and 3, it does go up a little bit, but there's a corresponding property tax in the capital projects fund that drops by that same amount. So really, those numbers need to be looked in totality.
Is that tied to the bond payment that's being?
Yeah, there's a bond payment in the capital projects fund that we have. I believe it's a partial payment this year, and then that goes away. So we'll still have that revenue available, though, through the tax levy, and it just be geared to the general fund. Those were really the two ones I did want to mention.
Joe, do you want to say anything about the LRF money?
The LGD,
Yes.
yeah, we've been working very hard at the state, lobbying our state legislators to pass a bill by Representative Anthony DeLuca and Senator Laura Murphy, which would raise the LGDF to 8%. The municipalities have always received 10% of all the state income tax our residents pay to the state up until 2011, and at that point that number had dropped, where it's currently at 6.06. Last year we fought a battle, we lobbied, yours truly made a lot of phone calls, and we were able to, the governor wanted to reduce it by 10%, and we were able to keep it at 6.6%. This year we've made a concerted effort. There's been editorials in the paper. I did a press conference last week in order to get it up to 8%. If we get it up to 8%, that would mean an additional $500,000 to the city of Darien. We currently get $2.5 million in LGDF money. If you multiply that by 20%, you're going to get another $500,000. And that money is used primarily for public safety and for infrastructure improvement. That's where that money goes. We had a conference today. We're still working with Representative DeLuca and Senator Murphy, and Speaker of the House Welch is supportive of the bill. We currently have 50 members of the House of Representatives in the state who support the bill. We have 39 senators who support the bill, and Welch is meeting with the governor, and it's our hope that the governor agrees through the budgetary process to do an automatic appropriation, so every year we start getting 8%, and eventually then we get up to 10% after that. So we're looking forward to that. If it doesn't go through this year, it'll be a great disappointment to us, but you know, the governor, it's something the governor has to decide on, and it's an election year, and the governor seems to think municipalities are wealthy the way they are, that they don't need additional help, and that's not exactly the case in all municipalities. While Darien sales tax revenue may be high, well, we may be doing well financially, not all municipalities are doing as well as we are. And so we really could, we're all fighting the battle, and this is not just DuPage County, this is mayors throughout the state of Illinois, all the different councils of government. We're all putting pressure on the state legislature to get this bill by Representative DeLuca passed.
Okay. Thank you for
Sorry if I
that.
expounded.
No. I think it's just important because it's, as we talk about revenue, like things that could potentially get better versus, you know, but no, there's no guarantee. Yes, Brian?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor. Eric, I just want to make sure I understood your question. You said, you're talking about the revenues, you'd rather, you know, not underestimate and you talked about in order to cut things. Could you just clarify that so I'm clear on that?
No, I just want to make sure we've got a good revenue number to start with. That's all.
Oh, okay.
That's
Got
all.
it.
Okay, any more questions on the items on page 2 and then on page 3 for the general fund revenue budget fiscal year '23?
Page 3.
Summary,
the
yes.
The rents are going down. Isn't that pretty much, what are those rents for?
The tower rents, we have antennas on our towers. We do have included in that, it was a catch-up payment from one of the companies that this is the last year that will happen. So after
Oh.
May, that drops off.
Any thought of ever putting advertisement up on top of the water towers?
I have not thought about that.
Okay.
Any other questions on revenues? Okay. Well, if we're ready, then we will move on to the City of Darien City Council budget, page 4. What we'll do is we'll, obviously, if you want to look at the summary page on 4, but then we'll go the overview page on 4, but then we'll start going by account numbers and overview on page 5 and 6 for this budget. And what I was figuring we would do is kind of hone in on the city council discretionary expenditures, unless somebody feels it necessary to bring up a specific line item. We'll just kind of move through it quicker that way. Is everyone okay with that? Okay. So going down to operating, account 12-4205, we've got $500 for boards and commissions. Then the next one is the cable operations, account 12-4206, $6,000. And just raise your hand or, say, give a little cough if you think we need to stop. Dues and subscriptions, $26,440. Okay. Moving on to public relations on page 6, 12-4239, $1,300. Training and education, $1,000. Trolley contracts,
Anything specific, that $1,000? Is that just a general kind of training budget?
What the council has done
Specific in there.
previously, they've put $1,000 in, and there's available 150, I believe. $100 per elected official, should they come across any training session. And so if there's a seminar that one of the elected officials wants to go to, we could sign that up and pay for that up to $100.
I know that's how we got covered our new training one when we became elected. Did you have something, Joanne?
No, I just wanted to say that I'm one of the few that uses it because I go to monthly meetings.
Good for you.
Okay. Well, let's remind ourselves that it's
Yeah.
there to be used,
That's what we should do.
gentlemen
Yeah.
and lady.
That's
Okay.
what we should do.
Going down to trolley contracts. Any questions on any of these?
What was the code supplements? What's that, refresh my memory, what's that for, the 3,000?
When the city council passes ordinances, changes ordinance, we have a company, I used to be Sterling Codifiers,
MuniWeb, isn't it?
MuniWeb. No, MuniWeb's
No,
the,
That's the website.
Yeah.
yeah, it's a company that maintains the updated codes on the website. So if you go to the City of Darien website and you want
Yeah.
to look at the city codes, you go to that site.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll move on, but the total of maintenance for city council is $50,071, discretionary $35,840. Okay. Well, we'll move on then from, if I have a consensus, from the city council budget onto administrative department budget, page 7. Okay. We have the overview page, and then we'll hop into page 8, which is the summary.
Mayor.
And we'll, yes,
In terms of the overview page, I have a question. It's more related to Brian.
Okay.
And this is going to affect several of the other accounts. that we're going through. I noticed the IMRF, if you notice, the contribution had been running about $46,000. Projecting forward drops to $37,000. I'm going to give you my assumed answer. I know the IMRF, they invest and make in different investments also. They're also on a December 31st year end, and they redetermine the rate every year of contribution that we have to make on behalf of our different employees. This is the administrative fund. You'll see that same concept running through the other funds as we move forward. So, Brian, I'm assuming that they dropped our rate for next year, which is what triggered the reduction in the IMRF contribution going forward, because it is a
Yeah, and
function
that's
of
on a
wages.
calendar year.
Right.
So it's a little bit of estimating next calendar year. But basically, for all the benefit information, Julie, our accounting manager, has all the salaries on a spreadsheet, and these are calculated, and we do double check those, because there are, like on Social Security, there are some
Yeah.
employees that might max out and we don't pay over a certain rate, but those are all factored in.
I did check those, but the IMRF, I know they redetermine that rate every
Correct.
year, so I assume since the market was so good in '21, that's the reason
There
for
was
the
a drop,
decrease in
yes.
it, right, okay.
Any questions on that for Mike or Brian? Okay. Anything else, Treasurer Corn?
No,
Okay. So then we'll jump into page 8, and we'll do the same kind of methodology that we did from the council budget. And we'll just kind of hone in, unless there's something you want to raise a question about. We'll hone in on the discretionary expenditures. So we'll hop into dues and subscriptions, 10-4213 for $1,615. Okay. Then over to page 9.
I'm sorry,
We-
Mayor.
yes.
I did want to point out, under liability insurance, 4219, we have an expense in the general fund and the water fund, and that's for our property and casualty insurance. So that covers all of our workers' comp claims, it covers professional liability, all of the claims we may receive. And we're part of the Intergovernmental Risk Management Agency known as IRMA, and it's a municipal pool of probably 65 governmental entities now, and it's been around a long time. And, you can either get regular conventional insurance or really this intergovernmental pool, and it's a great pool to be part of. And also, we do have, we've had a good year this year, and what they do is they look at past history as part of your premium, and this year, we probably saved $100,000 in that premium due to good loss years over the last 5 years. So that's always good to see. And they also keep a reserve balance in there, and we have the ability to use that and draw that down. But as Treasurer Corn points out every year, they earn better interest than we do. So that money is an asset, but sitting there for now.
Good
It's
to
just
share.
it's important for everybody to realize, the protections that the city elected officials have in doing your jobs and the staff. So I did want to point that out.
Thank you. Any questions for Brian on that? Yes, Tom Clifton.
On public relations, is just this social
So-
media? So that, sorry, that was page 7.
Okay.
Line item said operating cost, 50,498.
We can, if you want to jump to page 9 where it breaks it down,
Oh, okay.
10-4235, printing and forms, and then you've got 10-4239, public relations, where it shows Citizen of the Year, monthly retainer for communications, newsletter, special events,
Gotcha.
I just have one-
totaling $83,700.
I just have one quick question on that, and it's regarding the 3 events with bands. Have we looked into anything like that? I know with the Rotary of Downers Grove doing their Grove Fest, bands have, that weren't, were gone or whatever else last year, they couldn't do much. They're already way booked in advance. Do we know where we're at with that?
We hit, oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, we've had 2 meetings, one with the Park District Board, Executive Board, and one with the Chamber of Commerce. And we've made arrangements with both to interspace concerts within their schedules. The Chamber of Commerce, we're looking to have the Chamber of Commerce actually operate those 3 concert dates and the management. And what they've agreed to do is to schedule those dates in conjunction with other activities. So for instance, one might be an Oktoberfest, in the fall. So you would not just have the band, but you would also have food and other types of entertainment there. One would be in the summer, one might be in the spring this year, but those would be run, according to our discussions with the chamber, each one would have a theme. And we've been assured by April that we will have bands. She's really good at negotiating bands.
That's the question I wanted. I just know, do we have bands lined up?
We're not going to get, the Beatles revival band.
No, I get it.
We're going to get quality music for within the price range. But we've made the arrangements with them. Instead of Brian and I or having a group of city council do it, we're going to have the chamber do it, so that they're going to make those arrangements for those 3 different concerts.
No, I understand. I just understand that I know that this is February and a lot of those bands are already kind of booked up, for the year. And I just want to make sure that we have them before we go ahead and budget the money. That's all. Okay.
Well, because the council has approved this the last
Right.
2 years, and we haven't done it due to COVID, I think the mayor and I, pending tonight's discussion, will sit down again with the with the chamber, because our discussion was a bit preliminary. There's a lot of details to work out, but I agree that's a good way to go.
Okay.
You mean monthly retainer? Like, what is that? Is that just for a social media monthly
Yeah.
retainer?
There's monthly retainers, your direct connect, and everything else she does through social media.
That's the annual cost, obviously, the 36. It says monthly, but I'm
The
sorry.
newsletter is something we're adding.
Darien Connect, right? Yeah. Or
We have an issue of that newsletter going out probably in April.
Probably in early April. We're working on
The
now
printed
and-
newsletter that'll be mailed to every
Yes.
household.
Everybody will get
Okay.
the newsletter, and it'll cover things that, it'll cover things such as the budget. We have a number of items that'll be in the mayor's message, but there'll be issues that'll be pertinent for residents. We really wanted to make sure that all residents were getting information. Not everybody looks at Direct Connect or gets the Direct Connect, so we thought the newsletter was a good way of getting that information.
We do have things in there too, like the brush pickup, because that, will start soon, and we wanted to get that out. So there's not a lot of the services that will be in this one yet, but again, we're putting all our phone numbers, encouraging people to call should they have questions and they're not on the in the internet or email.
I was just gonna say, do we have someone separate, or is it all through the chamber that does everything?
Chamber does nothing.
The chamber does nothing with the newsletter.
Okay.
We hired Metro Strategies.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
A couple of years ago.
Okay, so they're still on,
and,
okay.
and they changed, and now we have an employee, just a single person doing that for us, who was recommended by Metro Strategies. So again, it's the weekly direct connect. It's all our postings on all our social media. It's coordinating responses to those things.
Yes, Lester?
Have we get any metrics? Are we going to get metrics this year to see if there was like an increase in traffic on that Darien Direct Connect, or see if there's any improvement in our communication from residents? Like, are we going to get some metrics?
We did get that when we had the agreement with Metro Strategies, and that was a couple thousand more a month, I believe. And when we have this contract with Mora, those metrics were not part of that. But I could certainly talk to her about, looking at some of those things. I don't know, each thing probably has their own metric, we
Facebook,
could very easily, we'll know how many people are in Direct Connect.
Yeah.
And some of those more basic things, but I'm not sure of all the other metrics.
That's what I mean. I know Direct Connect was one of the major concerns of people not signing up.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if there was like an increase in, signups or something.
Oh, yeah,
like that.
that's
So-
been an increase, and the staff upstairs did a great job during this transition with the garbage company. We had a lot of people coming in who might not have been on Direct Connect. So upstairs, every time they sign somebody up, you hear the bell ring. So it's been going off pretty well.
Nice.
Just one other quick thing on that. I don't think, and I asked this before to you, Brian, I don't think we can find out how many people are actually watching Channel 6.
Yeah, that was not
Watching a
available.
Specific recording. Now, what about, and help me here, guys, what about on YouTube? Can you find out who actually watched,
I think
how many people actually watched then, the actual
YouTube-
council meeting on YouTube?
Yeah,
You can see
if you
the
were to
viewer.
put on YouTube now, it shows how many people are viewing it.
Yeah.
like last night I had it on to make sure it's working right, and there was 2. But, that whether or not
Is that
that's
something you could
typical.
provide to us, each month, just how many people watched the council meeting?
Well, I'm not as familiar with YouTube, but I could check
Yeah.
to see if that's.
I did just be trying to find out if are people watching or not, or,
Yeah, I mean,
A lot of people watch it on YouTube because the quality on Channel 6 has been pretty poor, so a lot of people go to YouTube.
Yeah, I will
You can
check that.
definitely pull the stats off of YouTube to know how many people watched it live, and then after that, how many people
Yeah.
viewed it.
Yeah, okay.
Is it like a, re-recorded?
Yeah.
You can even, even if you clicked on it yourself,
You
you
can.
can see that number.
Okay.
Any other questions on public relations? Yes, Tom
I
Belzak.
just want to clarify. So the plan right now is to spend $6,000 to the chamber to manage those 3 events? Is that?
The $6,000 would be to go to, would.
For all-
be
to manage
their
all 3
manage-
events.
Would be their management cost.
Right.
In other words, you have to have porta potties, you have to have.
No, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
make sure it's clear. The budget's going to give the chamber $6,000 and the chamber will be responsible for completely managing all 3 of those events.
Well.
I don't know if you're
it-
going to give them, you're going
it
to
would-
reimburse
Well,
them.
that's
for
what I mean.
they
It would really
spent.
be the 15. We haven't, the 15, because there's the special events, like for the bands and things like that, we have 9,000 in, and the amount
No,
below.
I understand.
Oh.
My point was, we budgeted 9,000 for bands. Whether we do it or whether someone else does it, it's 9,000 for bands. The 6,000 is going to be to have them manage those 3 events. Would that be correct?
Correct.
Correct, but we have to work that detail out
Okay.
specifically.
I mean, I'm not
because-
against it, but I
No,
think I want to know what I'm getting for 6,000.
But
Right.
isn't it,
And we
when we
did-
say management, isn't just their cost, like you say, for porta potties? I'm not just paying the chamber just for their time, am I?
No.
Oh, okay.
You're paying their.
Reimburse their
they're gonna have-
cost.
Yeah, they're gonna have, as someone
Sure.
who's familiar with running Darien Fest, there's,
Yep.
there's additional costs to running a fest besides just the band, the entertainment.
Yeah.
The porta potties and the marketing and all
Yep.
that other stuff.
They're out of
That's
pocket
where
costs.
where that money's going.
Okay, okay.
And I'm sure that we'll be working with them
Come up with a budget.
to understand where that money is going. There'll be
Okay.
accountability there for them.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever formal agreement we come up with, we'll come back to the council
Right.
for a resolution or a formal
Okay.
approval.
Good.
Any other questions on that area? Okay, moving on, training and education, $1,500, 10-4263. And travel and meetings, $500. If there's nothing more on page 9, we'll move to page 10. Going down to contractual services, 10-4325, consulting professional services. A discretionary fund of $19,200.
And
Which ties back to LRS electronic recycling event that we discussed last night
Yeah,
at
that
City
was
Council.
approved last night, so
Yes.
that's, is in the
That's a
budget.
non-issue, or a non-point. Contingency, 10,000. Do you want to explain that?
Well, that's in, Stan thinks it's his sometimes. Isn't it? Well, it might be.
thought you spent it
That's
already.
just for, we have a $16 million budget. We certainly didn't account for everything, and things will come out through the year. I think in the past, Dan might have had some of the banners around town were ripped. We had to get a replacement for more. So that's just unanticipated expenses that come up.
And then we have janitorial services for miscellaneous cleaning, 1,000. Going down to capital equipment, 65,000. So that's to upgrade the chamber here, the council chamber?
Yes, we have, the 5,000 is, typically, we do leave some for the cable room in case something goes, but when the draft budget was prepared, we did not have the backup that we actually received yesterday from the company that does, or would do our sound work. They've done some things for us. They do work for a lot of municipalities. The owner is actually a sound and media person for another community. So yesterday, we just got a price, and it's a total of $63,500. So it's a little bit more than what we have in there. And what it would be, it'd be a certain amount of hardware that they would bid out for us and get the best price, and then the rest would be their labor for installation. So basically, what this would do there's what's called a V-Mix, and that's kind of the system management. It puts everything together, sound, the video, and that is estimated at about 8,000. We're looking at a wireless mic system, and we would get rid of these mics, and that's part of the improvement. We have the cable playback system that puts us on cable and all the cable messaging. That is also very old. So again, for the microphones, it's the wireless mics, it's mixers, and this will get us, away from the hard wiring, away from the static, and this will be on the internet. So the only problem we would have ever is if the internet was down for a particular time. But this will improve the sound. It'll get rid of the machine behind you. And this is what we've been asking for, and the council's been asking for some time. And I think it's a good project to do.
Any
And again,
questions
anything
for Biden?
over 5,000 does come back to the city council throughout the budget year. So what you're seeing here now, even if it's in kind of an abbreviated form, anything over the 5 will come back to the council in formal contract form or expenditure approval form.
Alderman Belzak?
You said you just got new numbers today. Are we going to be able to get an email for all of us to see how long will it take for you to put together a backup for that?
Yeah, I have the backup, and, I have paper copies I had today, but I would rather probably email.
Yeah, that's fine.
So everybody can.
So they're ready?
Yes,
basically.
yes,
Okay.
we have that ready.
Alderman Clistic?
Could we ask the gentleman, you mentioned the internet going down. It does happen. I've been on Zoom calls and conference calls. Internet does go down. Is there a backup system? Can we use a phone as a hotspot? Is there a backup system they could have? We could ask them.
We are looking at a type of backup system where a camera might be in the back that could be used. Probably, again, I don't know if that would be wireless, and then we might be able to broadcast that on YouTube. But that we're still getting the details on. But he did mention that would be part of the project.
But if the internet did go down, they'd still be recording it so that it could be viewed, just not live.
Yes.
So the recording would still
Yeah,
continue.
we would record the meetings.
Right. But there would be like a delay in viewing it because it couldn't be uploaded or streamed into the internet.
Yeah, and when we get the formal
Sure.
information to the council, we will double check all that. This is just a technical area that we don't have expertise or knowledge in, but you can do whatever we want them to do in this day and
But this
age.
is the method that is like what makes sense for a municipality of our size to go down, I guess.
Yeah, this is the same that Glenn is the owner of the company, has been doing for a number of other communities. And again, fairly recently, he mentioned Lyle, and Westmont is the community he's at, but he's done this for a number of towns, and this is what he's recommending. And he's well aware of the problems we have. He's also the company now that we pay to run the camera system now, and when we don't have the volunteers.
Any questions on any of that? Any other items under the administrative department budget? Okay. So that shows us with a maintenance total of $1,273,300, a discretionary of $182,565. If there's no further discussion, we will move on from administrative department budget. All the backup was also provided for those items. And then we will start with community development department budget. Page 27. Yes, Treasurer Corn.
Yeah, I have a question for Brian. I discussed this with him before, but I'm not sure whether we changed the number or whether we were talking about the same thing. Under the economic incentives, you'll see the estimated actual for the current year as being 359,000, and going forward 378. The 359 is a combination of Home Depot, which is $68,000, and then the balance for Walmart, which last year was about $291,000, give or take. So the 559 that he's got there in the current year, I questioned him on it, and I believe that number is going to be higher when we get to the actual numbers. What the auditors do, they have us do the actual computation, because the incentive is based on their actual sales through April 30th. We obviously don't have those numbers. We get them once a year from the state, what the Walmart sales are. They have been increasing, and as Alderman Gustafson has said, sales tax seems to be going up. My guess is that number is going to be going up, so I think this number may be a little bit on the light side, maybe by $20,000 or $30,000 when we get the actual numbers from where Walmart actually was. That's the actual dollar amount that we paid this in cash in this last fiscal year.
Forgive me, where you at?
Well, I'm
Page
sorry.
27.
I'm on page 27, about halfway down. There's a line called Economic Incentives.
Got it.
That's both Walmart and Home Depot are combined in that. The Home Depot is a fixed amount. Walmart depends on what their sales are.
359. I'm sorry, I heard a number 559 in my ear, and that's why I was lost. Thank you.
Sorry.
Mike, I have us paying Walmart this year as an example. The incentive was $291,000.
Right, that's what we paid them like in May of this current fiscal year.
Correct.
And then we paid Home Depot the balance,
Correct.
67 or 68. That's what makes up the 359. What I'm saying is that number for the current year is going to change, because after April 30th, you're going to go to the state and you're going to say, what were Walmart's sales taxes?
Yeah.
And let's say that comes up, instead of 291 that it was last year, if it comes up to 320 or 330, that's what we're going to owe them. And that's what the auditors are actually going to record as the expense as of April 30th. Because the year end and what we owe them is fixed as of April 30th. So you're basing that on last year's number. My estimation is that number will probably increase somewhat in the current fiscal year.
Okay, and we do come across these where budgeting doesn't exactly say what accounting does. So for me, budgeting what we paid this year, but I will look at that number with Mike a little more.
But again, based on even what Eric Gustafson said, as sales go up and our sales tax goes up, I would anticipate that their sales went up and what we would owe them back would go up, since we're on we have the base, but anything over that base goes back to them.
And that number, Mike, with auditors, it's a part of the year, correct?
No, it's
So they
all
might
year,
take-
because the incentive is based on May 1st to April 30th. So April 30th of 2022, you're going to go to the state like you always do
Yeah.
and say, what were Walmart's sales? What were the sales taxes
Yes.
collected? You're going to compare that to our base, and then that extra amount, last year was 291 that we paid them in May, which is what you have in
Yes.
here. So we will pay it this May, but the expense will actually be reflected as of April 30th. So that number will be higher, as well as the next couple of years, I would assume. Again, if sales keep going up, that would go up $20,000, $30,000 a year.
Since we're talking about these rebates, when does the Walmart and Home Depot rebates end? Do we know? I know.
Home Depot was a 10-year, and I believe we're in about the 5th or 6th year in it. At the time we did the Walmart, I said that I will probably be dead long before it ends.
Oh, I know. It's gonna get worse, would be my concern.
Well, it's not, can never get worse. I mean, we've
Oh, they can
protected our
jack it up.
base, but what they insisted on in calculating the payment was we owed them $2 million and we owed the developer $2 million, so it was a total of $4 million. But they insisted, part of the deal was that $4 million that we owed them basically accrued interest at approximately 8.5%. So at 8.5% interest on $4 million, essentially everything we've been paying them has all been going to interest. So the amount has not decreased. In fact, Walmart at the 291, they get the first 300,000. If it goes over 300,000, that's where the developer will start getting a contribution toward his $2 million. He has not received 10 cents at this point. So again, I think we'll all be long gone, but it was done for purposes of protecting our biggest sales tax
Home
generator.
Depot the same, is that a 10-year too?
They were a 10-year, yeah, there's a 10-year fix, there's no additional interest or anything, and it's approximately $67,000 or $68,000, and I think we have 4 more years. I'm actually hoping they come back at us, and what that tied into is their lease was expiring, and they had 2 lease extensions, 2 5-year lease extensions. So they said we will exercise both 5-year lease extensions for a total of 10 years, but they wanted 67 back from us for each of those years. So I'm hoping at the end of those 10 years, their lease will be up. So I'm hoping they do want to stay here, because again, that's a nice revenue generator for the city.
And Dan, who owns that property between PetSmart and Walmart?
Between PetSmart and Walmart,
The old Circuit,
That
the old
empty.
Circuit City?
that's inland.
It's inland. So inland has the right to develop at that? Do they have to get Walmart approval, or that's just inland?
There are some contingencies of what can go in there. I don't have all the caveats to that.
Okay,
But yes, there are, whether
so that's inland.
a grocery store, for example, they may prohibit that.
Yeah, could it be direct competition?
So Home Depot's needs $67,000 in incentive to stay in Darien?
It was
Well-
670 over 10 years.
Right, it was roughly 670,000 for them to stay for 10 years to exercise their,
Gotcha. Have you ever looked at a Menards or Lowe's? I know a lot of residents ask for something else. I shop at Home Depot and their prices are pretty high compared to other places. So they sort of have a monopoly. So I'm just curious if we're giving them additional money for a monopoly. You got a Home Depot just down the street. So I don't
Well, the
think they're
answer-
going to move. I
Tom,
mean,
the
we'd love to have a
answer
Menards all
The
day.
answer to that is yes, because the reason Home Depot, there's two Home Depots, is number one, to keep Lowe's out of Woodridge for direct competition to the Woodridge Home Depot. I'm sorry, the Darien Home Depot. The Home Depot was also approached by Westmont and as well as Lowe's for Westmont to go in a certain quadrant on 63rd Street. That never materialized with Lowe's and Home Depot. That's when we had gotten wind of that information, and that's when we started the negotiations with Home Depot, which took approximately 2 years to put the deal together for them to stay.
As I recall, doesn't Home Depot produce, what is it, 550,000 in revenue?
I can't divulge the exact
Yeah,
number.
we're
It's
not
pro-
allowed, as Mike said, per individual sales
Okay.
tax. There's just confidentiality, but obviously payments out is public information.
Gotcha.
And back to your question, Tom, you might like Menards, I may prefer Home Depot, I may prices here or there, but unless you can guarantee me you can get the Menards to come in there, if we say, okay, forget it, Home Depot, it's a sizable number that you'd be giving up.
And Menards was contacted as a backup, if you want to say, and they were not interested for the simple reason that there were two strategic locations between Bolingbrook and Hodgkins where it made no sense for them to put in an additional one.
Any other, yeah, on Bell Road. Any other questions on the economic development incentive money or rebate money? Okay. We'll go back down then. I think we already said travel and meetings. Then we've got vehicle, gas and oil. None of those, though, I'm sorry, I'm not even looking then to the discretionary expenditures.
We have nothing on the whole thing.
Yep. Okay. There's nothing else left under discretionary expenditures for the community development budget. Are there any more questions on any of the other line items after economic development?
Just one quick question. I know Eric mentioned about having some budget for marketing for businesses for part-time. Was that budgeted in?
No, that was a position, that's that one I sent you, Brian.
Yes.
Regarding that retail business attraction and development specialist.
Yeah, I recall Eric had sent that on, and in discussions with Dan, we had determined and believe we don't need that position. If the city council wants to add that, that would be something the city council would have to do. Our feeling was that, we're working now on the zoning codes for the larger shopping centers. And all of those shopping centers have management firms and brokers that are already going out looking for businesses. So we thought that would be redundant for us to use city money to pay for that, because that's already being done.
Yeah, but personally, and I've had some Dan and I have some talks with some of these developers. I'm not real comfortable with some of the developers and how hard they're really working, to be honest with you.
You're saying developers, you mean brokers?
Yeah, like Mid-America. Okay, I mean, they talk a good game, but they haven't really done much. Okay, so how did, and Dan and I are now working with them, trying to, to get some things going in here, and that's what this position would do. And I pulled it from, I wrote the job description. It was really based upon what other communities have, and a lot of communities do have this type of position that really then get involved and work heavily with the brokers and stuff, go directly to businesses and attract those businesses and get it through the process, and then work with the city and get any ordinance and stuff approved and that type of thing. I mean, it's just a position to help facilitate, since we're in such competition right now with Woodridge and Downers, okay, trying to get retail space and stuff. It's brutal out there. You know, you can see what Downers, the improvements they've made to their center. Now we're in competition with them, and they stole export away from us. So, you know, I'm sure they're looking to attract other businesses from Darien. So it would just be another tool, you know, that type of thing.
I'd be careful about saying that any municipality stole any business from us.
No,
Because if I'm not mistaken, it sounded as if the owner of Export didn't find the services they were getting at their current location, and that's why they moved. Not that Downers Grove actually stole something.
Lower rent.
Yeah, so I'd be careful about how we say
So
that.
that if you offer lower rent, you stole the business away.
The reason I was supporting it is I had Shiba Sushi Jim in my ward, and he moved to the middle of town. He felt like in Darien, there's you're part of the chamber, and you're not. And if you're not part of the chamber, you don't have that inside scoop, he calls it, to the city. And so, you know, he's an immigrant. He felt like intimidated, you know, coming forward, trying to get like, you know, I worked with Dan a little bit for Shiba to come in. Jim's the owner. And so he'd explain to me, like, he felt like if you're part of the chamber, you got the in crowd, you have the influence of the city. If you're not part of the chamber, you don't have that, and you're going to struggle a little bit. And so he was a little intimidated by it. So the reason I supported Eric here is if we have someone that proactively goes out, maybe they won't feel as intimidated. And I asked Jim, I go, why don't you just join the chambers? Like, well, I can't afford it at the time being, maybe in the future. But the reason I would support it is the intimidation he brought up to me is that going to the city versus, you know, you look at it, well, the rich businesses can afford the chamber. Those that don't can't, so then they won't have the inside scoop, right? The chamber's a full-time lobbying group within the city hall, right? So, you know, you have that in, theoretically.
But
so.
that's not correct, Tom. When we've worked with many businesses, we don't care whether a business is in the chamber or not. I know Dan has worked with Chiba, but there's a number of businesses. Even you know, when our economic development committee reached out, they reached out to all businesses. It doesn't matter if you're in the chamber or not. That's not a criteria, and I don't know why he felt like that. He obviously is a great business in town. He moved from a location and kept it there. So there was something about Darien he really liked, but it's absolutely untrue.
I mean, he wouldn't bring it up to me if it wasn't. I just, you know,
Pardon me?
He wouldn't bring it up to me if it wasn't true, right?
No,
I mean, he
I'm
felt
not
intimidated
it's not a
by
fact
it.
that we can prove. I'm just saying it's a feeling he might have had, and I'm telling you on our end, it makes no difference whether you're in the chamber or not. And Dan could add. I mean, he speaks with a lot of businesses. Dan, I don't know if you have anything.
No,
you
I
want to add.
have to add to that comment, Tom, because, well, you know, again, I worked with Jim on several issues, from the building permit process, from the liquor issue of it, from the potential drive-through. I was not aware of any such rhetoric in any shape or form, by no means. As a matter of fact, Jim came in and complimented how very friendly the building staff was, how we worked with them. And at the time, he was going to have both locations, or he did have both locations going as well. So, again, I'm not sure how that information came about, but if there is something to the contrary, I would love to entertain that conversation.
Well, you know, Chiba is in my ward, Mr. Klistak, and I will go have lunch here shortly, and if I have a conversation and see if that goes any different. Thank you very much.
He started out in my ward.
Thank you.
And grew.
Well, speaking of economic development too, just and as well as during the COVID time when rebates were given back to food and beverage tax was given back to every Darien business, regardless of them being a chamber member. And as Administrator Vanna mentioned, when outreach happened to existing businesses, check-ins by the Economic Development Committee, every business was reached. Chamber had nothing to do with it. So Chamber is an organization just like we have Rotary and other groups within the community. And it's completely optional. You know, but there's lots of Darien businesses that don't belong, and then there's businesses that belong to the Rotary. I mean, to the chamber that aren't even in Darien. So, but yeah, I think checking in with our businesses is always appreciated, whether they're in our ward or they're not. You know, to keep business local, I think is a great
Yeah, no,
Great thing.
absolutely. But from a 10,000 view, though, you do have someone that's the chamber in full, in the city hall full time. So, it is beneficial to join. But for those that don't join, they seem a little intimidated. So that's all.
And if you look at the Illinois Municipal Review magazine for February 2022, the recent one, page 18, it talks about getting your organization ready for retail recruitment. And it talks about putting a formal action plan together, putting together a specific team, and be able to make sure you're actually promoting your community. I don't think we do enough to promote Darien throughout the retail industry. So there's a great article in here how communities are taking a much more active role in being able to not rely on brokers, but actually take the lead for themselves. And that's really what this is
I
coming
guess
from.
if we had such an issue, Eric, I don't understand why we have new businesses wanting to come into Darien.
Well, we got a lot of empty retail space, is what I'm
Well,
saying.
there's not a lot of empty retail space.
There's a lot in my ward.
You have several shopping centers in your ward.
Right.
You have the Darien Town Center, which has one vacancy, which is right there by the Aodaki, okay?
And I've got the empty Walmart space.
Right next to that, in that other shopping center, Darien Town Center 2, you just had a Wayback Burgers go into that center.
That's correct.
You have no vacancies.
And I'm trying to expand that center.
Okay? The Chestnut Court is where you have your vacancies.
Yes.
You have one center where you have your vacancies. Brookhaven.
That's a huge center, and there's a lot of vacancy in there. 30% vacancy rate.
That's a misnomer. You repeat that, you give the impression that there are vacancies throughout the city of Darien, and that's just not true.
I'm talking about in
We
my
have a
ward
we
there
have-
is.
Let me talk, please. We have a gentleman who came to me, Joseph Fontano, who's going to be opening a private coop. You know how excited he is to come into Darien with the Steak and Shake? He has 5 other locations that he rents the space. He's going to buy that building because he wanted to be in Darien. He came into the office and told me when he found out there was a vacancy in Darien, he looked forward to coming into Darien to take that vacancy. He's going to build that fry the coop there, okay? So
Right.
that's your ward as well.
Yeah, and that's a high demand because it's a drive-through. So those are in hot demand.
Well,
So
what I'm
those go
saying
like
is,
that.
I wish you would not.
I had A&W
I wish you would
lined
not
up for that,
use
too.
the phrase that we have a lot of vacancies, because we don't.
Well-
Look at your sales tax revenue, how it went up.
I look at my list and I see a lot.
Just to add,
Yes.
I think as I mentioned when we started this talk, the zoning code and some of these, I'll call key development areas, have gone now to the Plan Commission and gone to the Economic Development Committee. Dan and Jordan will soon be working on recommended text amendments to our zoning code. And our plan is to do what we did, for many years, and I know the years that Dan has been here, is again, to meet with the owners and the brokers of these centers. So, that's what our plan is, and that's what we intend to do, unless the council has other ideas.
Because centers have the ultimate, because the Darien doesn't own these properties. Centers have the ultimate control on who they will allow into their space, right?
Yeah.
They might, obviously they're not going to want 3 hair salons in a row or 4 different, sushi restaurants. They have to have a variety. So they have the ultimate control since they own the property and manage it, correct?
Correct, and when the city council was discussing the marijuana issue, we, in contacting the centers, we did find out a lot of centers do prohibit certain businesses, and I don't know which ones. I don't know that our brokers would know. But Dan has had great relationships. I have, the elected officials have, Mayor Marquez, Mayor Weaver, have had really good relationships with these property owners. I agree Chestnut Court really needs to be looked at. But that needs to be looked at in totality. I don't know if we were to put one new store there, if that's a Band-Aid, or if the owners really want to do something creative and make that a mixed use. But I will tell you, I know Dan's fired up and Jordan's fired up. We're all fired up to start this as we look at these centers that maybe need to add mixed use where there's residential there. And that is in my opinion, ripe for that, because it is an older center, and you do see towns now doing that, whether, some are larger, like Indian Hills Golf Course in Bloomingdale, or the shopping mall. They're doing a lot of those things. And again, before we want to put one business in there, I think that's the way to go. And I know it's been very difficult. Eric sent something out, and residents gave ideas. And I think that gave some people a little false sense of what could go there. Everybody wanted the whole, I think.
Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's.
Yep.
Dan had known Trader Joe's couldn't get there because he's tried about 4 or 5 times. So again, I don't think that really helped us at all, because it did set an expectation.
I got 2 leads out of that I gave to Mid-America that they're following up on. So I did get 2 companies from that.
No,
That
Eric, I'm
residents.
sorry. I'm only talking about the residents. There was a lot of responses.
No, but what the residents gave me, I went and researched and called those companies, and I got 2 good leads that I gave to Mid-America based upon the input coming from the residents. So
No,
it was helpful.
Yeah,
Of them giving
resident
that.
input is wonderful.
Yeah.
But you did have a lot of people that wanted the Whole Foods now, and
Oh,
they think that we can easily go get a Whole Foods and put it in. That's the only
And
thing
then
I'm
Trader
mentioning.
Joe's was a perfect
Or
size for
Trader
export because it's 15,000 square feet, have been a perfect fit. Except Trader Joe's wasn't expanding this market right now.
Correct.
But that could change.
Correct. So input from residents, we've done surveys for residents. We want that. We like that. All I'm saying is there were a lot of comments of people wanting a Trader Joe's, where if we would have done it a little differently, we would have said, well, if you want a Trader Joe's, we're sorry, you can't have that. But again, I'm back to the Band-Aid effect versus looking at the whole parcel more creative.
And going back
And
to,
I already having those conversations with Mid-America, and we're going to have a follow-up on with Pine Tree. So
About
we-
mixed-use developments
Yes,
and
that's
apartments?
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, then I
And
think
the mayor's
that's...
going to be, was on the first call, he'll
Yes,
be on the
and
second call.
and
then I
economic
think-
development is also, that's been a major undertaking for them with Jordan and Dan, and looking at
Yeah.
all the different, not just that particular spot, but all of Darien.
And I think what Eric is saying is actually what I'm saying. That's the
Yeah.
way to do it.
Right.
You build a relationship. If you send out a broker, whether he's a contractor or employee, that's not like meeting with the mayor, an alderman, alderwoman, and Dan. That's I think really important, and people do like that. And again, that's how we, and primarily Dan, has gotten a lot of businesses in here, and even in Chestnut Court. A couple of those businesses did come from Downers Kitty Corner when there was a couple spaces. So, that's fair game. But just so we know, that is the plan, and that's what we are intending to do. And we're probably only at second base because the zoning is critical. We have to update the zoning
Right.
for that center.
And that's underway.
Yes.
And, okay,
Yes.
so is everyone up to speed then on this whole scenario? Now
But
that,
by no means did any of my comments mean we don't want input.
Right.
We always want input. Actually, my favorite part of the job is when residents call me, give input, and we talk. So that.
and I think you're also making it clear that major attention is being placed on this. This is not, lots of looks are being, and all hands on deck on trying to figure out how to address this.
Yeah, and Dan or Mayor, if you want to add, Dan, your department's working on this, and you've done it for years. You don't have to add anything, Dan, but if we left anything out, feel free.
No, I think we've done an excellent job over the years. I mean, I think the pride of our downtown area, for example, when we started that, how controversial that was, and look what it developed. It's an anomaly to say that you build before you have tenants. We did that with the developer. We built before we had the tenants, and we were vacant for about a year, and we got Starbucks, and we got the rest of the fill-ins in there. What a great accomplishment, and again, I can spend an hour with the history of Bona Beef, with the water tower, just the redevelopment of that whole area to make it the best that we possibly could to where it is today without having a choo-choo train in town.
And Dan, just to interject, I'm not hearing anybody saying that you haven't done a good job at that over the years.
Yes.
What I'm hearing is, how do we move forward?
Well, oh, yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the plan.
That
With
was
the
part of a
zoning-
redevelopment right there.
Right,
That's a
and-
key redevelopment area, and we've accomplished it. And
Great.
now it's bigger and better.
Just add, all my contacts with other mayors in other towns, I attend meetings of DuPage mayors and managers. I meet with managers like Brian from other towns. The developments that are going on in those communities are mixed-use developments, where they're looking at housing as well as retail. They're looking at retail that's geared to meet the needs of the people who are going to be living in those developments. They're not looking as much as for individual retail as they are the redevelopment of older centers that they currently have. So that really is the trend. So when Eric says we have a meeting coming up we actually had a meeting with the brokers, and the brokers could not give us an answer to my question.
Right,
Are
that's
you
where we got Pine
interested
Tree.
in mixed use?
Right.
They said that's not our area of expertise. So we're going to set up a meeting to meet with those people who really can give us an answer. And the question is going to be, do you have plans for mixed use in
Right.
this development? That's the question, because that's when Dan and myself and Jordan and Brian will kick into gear how we could work with them to fulfill a mixed-use development. And then you can bring that center back to life again. If you look at the opposite corner, someone spent millions of dollars to redo the facade on half of the buildings there, and yet 85% of them are empty. So redoing the facade didn't do them any good in Downers Grove. And they may have got export, but that's about it. You go over there or drive through there and see how many of those nice-looking fronts are empty buildings.
You know, and just to interject.
And then we're going to wrap it up.
Right. A lot of these developments, whether it's Darien Town Center, Chestnut Court, are under what they call REITs, Real Estate Investment Trusts. With that said, it's a motivation of that REIT, and if they sell the REIT, who gets it next? What is the purpose of that property? Is it to produce income? Is it to produce a loss? Is it to maintain neutrality? You know, so again, those are some of the insights we don't have. And in regards to a marijuana shop, none of these REITs will take on a marijuana shop until the federal government legalizes it. So I guess I just wanted to put that out there as a redevelopment clause.
I sort of looked at it as taking some of the workload off you guys, having someone do it part-time. As Brian mentioned, you know, he sees an empty store. Oh man, he gets on it. He's on it. I'm looking at someone that already knows, hey, in 2 months, this business is moving out. The lease is over, right? Versus being reactive. Oh, we have an empty space. Let's work on it. So that's sort of how I looked at it. You mentioned you have to call them. Hey, something's going on. You're involved. You have so much going on. You and Dan, you guys run a city. So I was looking at allocating budget as taking some of that workload off you and have someone, come to you and the mayor like, hey, this is an opportunity coming in 6 months. Versus, oh man, someone moved out already. Let's start moving. That's all.
Yeah, it's kind of an opposite. Usually the staff comes and asks for more help. And I'm telling you, in this case, Dan or I, and all due respect to Eric, we looked at that and we discussed it.
Okay.
And we didn't think that's necessary. If the council wants to add that money in that position, you certainly have the right to do that. But from our perspective, that's part of the job that we have done and do.
Leave it in Dan's hands to decide, does he need an additional resource to be his right-hand person in respect to development? And if he feels he doesn't need it, I respect that.
And that's what I'm saying. Dan and I had talked about
That's
that,
what
and we
I'm-
were under the same conclusion.
But I just want to make sure, he's got a huge, huge team to manage. So it's just, do you have the resource to be able to do that? I know how great Chris is, but,
Eric, I think Dan gets really excited when he can complete a project like Town Center, like the Darien Point Shopping Center. When he did the water tower.
Oh, yeah. He loves the clock, I know.
He loves that. He really does.
You might find him sleeping under it someday.
Hey, you never know. When I
If he
get
doesn't
kicked out
finish
of
his
the
own house,
right.
that might be his
At
new
least you
home.
always know what time it is.
And just to finish up, Eric, and I appreciate the input. I really feel at this time that we don't need that broker because we
Okay.
can, with the Economic Development Committee or Commission, that's going to be a big help. But it's these REITs, these owners that we need to get to,
Right.
which is very difficult.
Yep.
And they're silent. Somebody manages them, and a great example is we still can't get on a date set to have a conversation with Chestnut Court owners.
Right. Oh, I know.
And again, it's like it's falling on.
And deaf ears.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I
So-
understand. It's frustrating.
Right, but
That's why it takes so much time to do that. I was just looking for a resource.
thank
Okay.
you.
Is there anything else on this budget section for Community Development Department budget? pages 29, 30. Okay. With that being said, then we will, the maintenance aspect of this budget is $968,929. We will move on then to Municipal Services. Does anyone need a bathroom break or a quick snack break before we start that?
It'll only take 5 minutes, right?
I doubt that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we will get started. Page 37. Municipal Services Streets Engineering Budget. We'll start off by looking at page 38.
Oh, Mary?
Yes,
Excuse me,
Mike
if I-
wants to
If I can back up to
talk a
page-
little bit about page 37, I
Page
predict.
37, yeah, I'm going to have another homework assignment
No.
for Brian here.
Yeah, I mean, yes, please do.
The drainage project's about 3/4 of the way down. Projected estimated actual of 215,000. You with me? It's already 241 at January 31st, so you may just want to refine that number.
Yeah, I'll check that, because that should have been a good number. I will double check that, yes.
Which one is that, Michael?
Drainage projects, Joe? 215 or 213 projected, and it's 241 at the end of January.
Anything else, Treasurer Corn, on that?
Not on that page, no.
Okay. So then we'll start off on page 38. We'll once again focus on the discretionary expenditures unless someone wants to, as we go in order, point out something else. So liability insurance for $7,500 for AED equipment and training.
Yeah, I have a question on that,
Yes.
Mary. Number one, I thought we had that, didn't we have that in the previous year budget and it didn't get done then, or am I right in
That's
that?
correct.
Okay, so it's just showing up here because we never did it in the past. Okay, and,
Just to interject on that, Mike, though, the AED equipment, when we looked at it, it was also leased equipment, so there was a continual cost. It wasn't, we weren't with that because they serviced the equipment as well, and it wasn't us owning it outright. So there would be, I don't remember exactly the way it broke down, but there was some training and then the cost for the leasing of it was like 10 or 11 units, whatever it was, because they come in every month, they run tests on them, they make sure they're good. If something's not right, the batteries are dead, the machine's not gonna work, they take it out, they give you a loaner. So there was a cost that was to repeat in a training portion. And I
okay.
don't remember the way it worked.
So this is now going to be an annual thing. So we did have it, we did put it in before, but this is an annual
Yeah.
thing.
Yep.
Okay, because if this is an annual thing, then I would assume there would be in maintenance and not in discretionary.
I think probably it's in the discretionary because we hadn't gotten to the point of actually doing it.
Discretionary
Yeah.
item, it never.
Yeah, we didn't.
Oh, it's never been done.
We didn't
Okay.
do it yet.
Since it's
And so
brand new, is that why?
Until we do it, I think then it would go into maintenance after that.
Okay, I thought we had done it
And
before,
I
but we
think
hadn't
just like
done it.
Brian said before too, anytime anything's over $5,000, we bring it up to the council for formal approval, so you guys will have the full facts in front of you in order to make the decision of what the lease agreement means or however
Okay.
we just determine to do it.
Okay, and then this is the second part, I'm on basically the same account, but then if you go to account 4263, a couple pages later, it's also got training for AED of 2,500. This says equipment and training 7,500, and that 4263 has 2,500 as just training. I just didn't know if that was a duplication or what that was.
Might have to check that, Mike. I don't know if there was a typo from last year's relation with the leasing or the equipment leasing and operations of it is not included with this.
Yeah, last year did have the same amounts, the 7,500 and the 2,500 in both those accounts.
I want to make sure there's no recertifications required and I don't recall that.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll flag both of those for
Just the one, the 2,500.
just the 2,500, okay?
Like, and that was on page 39.
Account
That's
42,
page 40.
4263. 4263.
4263 is on page 40. Under training and education.
I got it marked in too. We'll look at it tomorrow.
So are you done, Mike?
Yeah.
We go back to page 38, please.
Yeah, we're going to start back at the beginning. Now that, Mike, you done with your
Yes. With that page,
AED
yeah.
questions? Okay, so we'll go back to page 38, and did you have something, Dan?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we just found out that the City Hall HVAC system, particularly the furnaces, they need to be replaced. They're approximately 18, 20 years old, and bottom line is they need to be replaced. So we need to add $15,000 for the quote that we received. I want to put an additional $2,500 for contingencies in there to be able to balance some of the upstairs offices, as some of the staff members are too cold, some are too hot, so, you know, it's the typical HVAC syndrome, if you want to say. So total would be 17.5.
And what account is that, Dan?
That would go into 30, 42, 23. We just got the quote last week, so we didn't want to.
4223, Daniel?
Yes.
18,000, you said?
17.5.
That's in addition to the service contracts.
18, Mike?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm asking what you said. You don't remember what you said?
I remember what I said.
Okay.
You're
Okay.
going to list it as maintenance, or you're going to list it as discretion?
No, it'll be maintenance. Well, it's discretionary really, but it's part of maintenance. I mean, really, we don't have enough.
We don't put it in, we'll do it as an emergency, so we should
Right.
put it in the maintenance side.
Okay.
And then we can get
Any
rid
more-
of all the
any
little
questions
individual
on-
units.
Well, we have a total of 95,000 for maintenance discretionary, so now we're adding another 17.5.
That's a more specific item, correct?
Yes.
1025.
So on page 38, we've added 17.5, but is there any other questions on page 38? Otherwise, we'll move on to page 39 and discuss the other discretionary. Oh, no, none of those are discretionary. Yeah, they are. Hold on a second. Are they in the wrong column? Okay. Well, we have the chemical tanks, the waterfall wall, oh no, the architectural build-out, balcony, and the City Hall Police Department plantings, 95,000.
And Dan, what's the cost of just ripping down the balcony and not rebuilding?
Well, we do need the balcony, at least the roof portion of it, because there's an entrance that will be open to weather. So we would, at a bare minimal, need some type of canopy / roof. You know, what's the cost? I'd have to earmark it for approximately $7,500 to $10,000 without not knowing what structure that's currently holding it in place to the degree that it needs to be replaced.
But then you're chasing good money after bad.
Right, I
Let's
mean,
doing it, if you're gonna do it, let's do it right.
It's also dealing with the aesthetics of the building.
I mean, I was out there a year ago and it was bad. I mean, it's wobbly and it's unsafe and.
Yeah, you really don't want to be invited out onto the balcony. If you ever come to the office and I say, why don't you go out on the balcony?
It's obviously a code for something.
I don't think most people even know it exists. I asked a few people, how do you like the balcony at City Hall? What balcony? Okay.
Any other questions on those discretionary items under maintenance plus the additional 17.5 for the HVAC system?
I do have one more item that we need to increase slightly, and it's the police department brick retaining walls. It's listed as 20,000. We have to add an additional 10,000, and basically it's fortifying some of the existing wall that's currently in place and adding additional wall to prevent ongoing drainage issues that we've been having. Obviously, over the years, we've come a long way in respect to keeping the buildings from flooding, including the PD and the offices over here. With that said, what we continue to do is we're always cleaning out the grates. There's grates on the police department side where the water is coming off of off the Downers Grove property and to run incorporated and flowing into the curb line or adjacent to the curb line. There's wood chips that are currently in place over there, in which the reason for the wood chips is because you can't establish turf there because of the grass and because of the neighbors. So all those wood chips are basically coming down, clogging the drains. As they clog the drains, in some cases, they enter there's a huge sump pump pit, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, in which case the sump pump pits can and do fail. They'll trip because they get clogged, and then they have to go in there physically and clean them out, and hopefully by then there's no water in the police department sally ports. The second part of it is there's another retaining wall that's currently in place, and that one needs to be fortified just due to the height of it. We need a little more, for some more lift on it to say, so water doesn't cascade.
So that's an additional 10,000, bringing the total to 30,000 for that.
Right. Yeah, we just got the quotes back today. We just found out also, and part of the increase is from these brick suppliers. Last year was about a 5% increase, and I just heard today that they're increasing 8%, an additional 8%, basically due to labor shortages so they can retain employees.
Does this affect the performance of the police any or no? Because like municipal services, I mean, if the building's dilapidated, does it really matter if we fix it? that was the criteria for municipal services, that if it's a dump and it doesn't affect the performance, do we have to fix it? So does our police still perform well even if we don't fix it? Don't spend the 20,000?
That's a city council.
Tom, what are you referring to as a dump?
Municipal services building.
The building?
Correct.
As a dump.
Correct. You mentioned that we shouldn't fix it if it doesn't affect the performance. So I'm saying, well, if it doesn't affect the performance of our police officers, do we need to spend $30,000 on a building?
Yeah, just for the people watching and the residents, I would debate Tom as to him characterizing it as a dump, but that's for another day.
That's for a separate meeting down the road. But I think that what Dan was pointing out with the $30,000, it's, a water retention, like preventing flooding. This is not aesthetics. This is to prevent flooding into the building. That's what the purpose of it is. It's not a beautification thing.
It's a drainage issue.
Drainage,
It doesn't, it affects both.
So I don't think we want any of our buildings flooding.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm just saying, I see two different criteria used for judgment. That's all. If we're going to use the same criteria,
I don't think we're comparing them in the same.
If
I
it
think it's
affects the
apple and
performance of
oranges here.
someone's job, then it doesn't need to be fixed. So that's what we're saying. Municipal services. If it
I don't
doesn't
think-
affect their job, why should we fix it?
Alderman Klistic, I don't think this is in the same category as talking about the municipal services building. We're talking about preventing water from entering a building, police station or city hall. I don't think, we're not going to talk about the municipal services building. We're talking about this particular project and wanting to make sure the building stays dry. Okay, so let's just focus on this topic right now.
Yeah, I'll agree with it.
Okay, we can keep our commentaries about the municipal services building when we discuss that at a later date. Any other questions on
And
this?
how much was that additional?
Total is 30,000, so we're increasing it by 10,000. Again, this will come back to the city council for formal approval with competitive quotes.
It's 20 plus 10, right? Not 30 plus 10?
20 plus 10, 30
Okay.
okay.
30. And then we're adding another 17.5 for HVAC, so we've added another 47.5 to the discretionary for this 4223 maintenance building. So it brings it from 95,000 discretionary to 142.5. Is my math correct?
No. The City Hall and Police Department brick retaining wall was under maintenance, considering part of it was already in place.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm adding too much over. Okay. Correct.
Carry the one.
102.5 for the discretionary and then 127,686 for the maintenance. That's
Thank you for the math there, Alderman Kenny.
Hey, once in a while. Once in a
Yeah.
while.
Nope, appreciate it. Any more questions on that? Okay. We'll move down to, next discretionary item is rent equipment, 6,200. A tub grinder.
Is this the one we rent every year? Yeah.
For the brush pickup.
And once again, preceding the summary pages are backup items for these things.
Correct.
Any more questions on that? Nope. Yes, Corin?
Not on that particular item.
Nope, moving down.
But on the same account, and it's under the maintenance, the Vector rental, 2 months at $13.5 per month, Dan. In the water department, we're renting the Vector for 6 months for the meter replacements, and that's at $12.5 per month. This is $1,000 more per month.
It's the same program, and again, this is the residual, and we're not 100% sure if we're gonna need it. We wanted to make sure that we had the funds available as the meter replacement program rolls out in May. The goal is that instead of doing excavations,
No, I understand that. The question though is, it's 13.5 a month in one account and it's 12.5 in the other account. This account is showing 13.5, and in the water department budget for the 6 months, it's at 12.5 per month.
I think maybe just we weren't sure if there'd be any increases as we get later into the year. The
Yes,
cost of these machines are going up just like every, you know.
Yeah, but I would assume they would go up on both sides, so.
Possible. I think we had enough because, if it was 12 or 12.5, I think we had enough a little bit for a little bit of an increase to
Bless you.
cover the balance in the water.
or five, we're leaving it at where it's at. I mean, if you want to balance them both out so they're reflective.
It was just the inconsistency. I was wondering why.
Yeah, it had to be a typo, that's all it was.
So are we keeping it the way it is noted?
We're fine with that, yes. Again, we're trying to,
Did you have formal quotes on that, Dan? That's set?
Those already we're doing, right, correct. We're just gonna come back and
Well, we'll
review.
fix it then, I mean, yeah, right? Just to be consistent with,
At this point, I mean, we don't have a new quote for the upcoming, we're not sure if we're gonna need it in November, if we're gonna need it in May.
no, but I think what Mike said, each time we rent it, no matter if it's for water or
Right.
this, it's gonna be the same amount. So I'm just saying,
Well, it might go up slightly. I mean, everything is going up with it.
but it'll be consistent. It'll be the
Okay,
same.
yeah, we
each-
can be
It's
consistent,
a
sure.
minor thing, okay.
Anything else, Treasurer Corn, on that?
No.
Okay. Moving on down to supplies other. There's the winter banner replacements and the barricade rental for $12,000. Yes, Treasurer Corn.
Again, not those particular two items, but under maintenance, there's two, the last two items, asphalt restoration and 3 flashing stop signs. Those are both new items for this year. What is the asphalt restoration, flashing stop signs? I think I know, but
The asphalt restoration is just, I believe that was in there last year as well, if I'm not mistaken.
no,
Mike?
it wasn't. That's
It
why.
wasn't, then
no.
we just broke it out for additional public works projects, just for breaking it out. Trying to put an example.
It's like patching, yeah.
Patching, basically.
Was that ever an MFT, Dan, and you had to move it
That-
out?
That was part, we were using Orange, let's see, the company we were using, we had to pull that out, so that's part of it, but
Okay.
still asphalt and just general patching that we will be doing. It's not contractual services.
Yeah, but it was someplace else before, so it's not really a new item. It's just
Correct.
moved from
This was
MFT
the
possibly to
MFT,
here.
which I know we had discussed this with the committee, and we took it out of MFT for reasons that we couldn't use that asphalt company under MFT funding, and so we moved it into municipal services.
Okay, so it's something we've done before, but it's just now appearing in this account.
Yes.
Okay? And what about the 3 flashing stop signs that Treasurer Corn asked about?
Those are replacements.
For Manning and Fairview. The signs are aging and we're having trouble keeping them going.
Okay. Anything else, Treasurer Corn?
Nope.
Okay. Moving to account 4259, small tools and equipment, there's a discretionary of $21,000. That's on page 40. Any questions on those items? Okay, we'll move on to training and education for $8,600. We already, at the start of it, when we were talking about the AED equipment on page 38 under liability insurance, we've put an aside or a note on the training AED in this account to get clarity. So that'll be brought back to us. Anything else under that line or that header, training and education?
Well, the arborist training was $750 last year, and it's doubled to $1,500 this year.
We now have 2 arborists on staff. One of our arborists took the initiative and
It's fine.
got certified and very proud of it.
Okay. Anything else under that? Okay. Moving down to operating continue, we have $6,000 for utilities, gas, electric, sewer discretionary. Nothing there. We'll move on to forestry. Isn't that exciting? 120,405 in discretionary. A lot of fertilization. We control. Yes, Dan.
Let me just stop you with the tree. See, we got the fertilization. I'm looking for one specific line item, tree trimming. Maybe we didn't get to that one yet. Don't want to miss that.
That's the next page on 4375, Dan.
All right, thanks. When we get to that point, I can make a comment on that, please.
Okay. Any questions on forestry?
Yeah, on
Yes.
70, my favorite topic, 75th Street.
The planters mulch areas, Eric?
Well, it's like, now we're incurring some cost here. What are we getting now from the county for maintaining 75th Street?
Matter of fact, coming up to Municipal Services, we have a brand new agreement, coming up
Okay.
to DuPage County. I believe
Great.
It's gonna be a 3-year agreement, for the reimbursement of the city to mow, the right-of-ways,
Okay,
or parkways of 75th Street, Plainfield Road. And they've also increased the frequencies. I believe it's 2 or 3 additional times, which will be giving us additional revenue. And I want to say that revenue is closer to 50,000 now.
okay.
I'd have to double check that, but that
Right.
is what has been negotiated now for a new service, and that's coming back to Municipal Services, like I said, this coming Monday.
Now, is that up from what it was in the past?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I want to say it's up,
Good,
yeah, maybe $2,000, I
Okay.
don't recall specifically,
okay.
but it is.
Now, how does that cover our costs?
It covers our, part of the mowing costs.
Okay, but what
Okay.
about the fertilization and everything?
No, it doesn't cover all the costs. It doesn't
Okay.
cover the cost for the fertilization.
Okay.
Maybe it covers a part of it at best.
Okay,
We've been trying to utilize summer helpers, which has been beneficial in that respect. But the problem is that we haven't been able to
get summer help.
labor. So, again, we've been using our staff to do that. And again, that's the key corridor. And
Oh,
really, I think, our staff does a better job
oh,
than if we would have contracted out, or if DuPage County was to contract it out.
I know you do a better job.
In addition to the planters, obviously the planters, that's part of a beautification project, and with the irrigation system now in place, the plantings need to be upgraded, and that's from over the years. We haven't upgraded the plantings since they've been installed. I believe it's been 5 years now, 4 years?
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, so some of them have died off, they say that the plantings don't need water. Let me know what plant doesn't need water around here, and, let me know how it survives, but especially with the salt residue. So there's an upgrade in the plantings as well. So back to your question, Eric, yes, there is,
Okay,
some
good.
cost that we have taken upon, the city council has
Yeah,
taken
I
for the city.
understand. Okay, thank you.
And,
Anything else on that, Mike?
yeah, Dan, you may have just answered this question, but the plant contingency shown is $20,000. That was $5,000 last year.
Correct, and again, it's back
That's-
to
okay,
the
that's what I thought.
irrigation system
Okay.
to make sure that we can get things replenished and look at
Okay.
it.
Yes, Ted?
About the EAB, are we all done with that, all the trees and everything,
At this point, the answer is yes.
Okay.
What's going to happen in the year, I think Michigan State University has been the lead agency on, and probably the best source of information that we've had. We still may have a couple stragglers, but it's nothing to the alarm that we've seen, nor have we heard that we need to gear up again for another round of
Spraying?
injections. I forgot what they were calling, EAP, or triage, or whatever the product was called. So, yeah, but we're very sensitive to that. Again, I think that's the best decision the city ever made, in respect to saving those trees instead of taking them all down.
Oh my gosh, yeah, my sister's community, they were all just
Spent
mowed
like
down.
250,000, but we saved what, 2 million in trees?
If we were to do a value on it easily.
Yeah, that's a good move.
Except my wife hates that tree. It's a very dirty tree.
The ash tree?
Yes, very dirty tree. And it also has in the summer, so my daughter has to park on it, full of spiders. Tons of spiders are in that
Let's
tree.
take a look at it. Maybe
Yeah.
there's something else going on with
Yeah.
it, Eric. You want to eliminate all the
Her whole
spiders?
inside of her car gets full of spiders. You never seen such an ugly
Oh dear,
thing.
I'm
No.
going to have
Never
a
heard
nightmare
that
about that now.
I'll have to have you.
Because I have
had
one
the
on my
arborist
property
come
along
by.
as, I have one on the parkway and then one on in my yard, and I've never seen that, but now I'm going to see it,
Yeah.
now that Eric pointed it out. And I'm be like, oh,
Well, if we start
spiders.
getting calls for spiders.
Okay.
I had the
Okay.
arborist come out.
Yeah, okay, wow, I'm going to have a nightmare about that tonight.
I'll have
Thanks,
Dan
Eric.
come out. You're
It is
welcome.
a
Uh-huh.
beneficial insect, as Mr.
Yeah.
Belzic pointed
Yeah,
out.
tell my daughter that.
Yeah. Any other questions on forestry? Okay. Streetlight operating and maintenance, $35,000.
Yeah, can we turn to page 47 on that one? I've got some
Page
questions. on that.
47?
It's on page
That's the
47.
Oh, for the backup, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the
Yes.
backup.
So we're actually gonna, we'll probably need to move to page
Oh, Farmingdale lights, yeah.
41, right?
Yeah, first
The-
item.
the
was-
line item on 41?
35,000, it's on the bottom of page 40. That 35,000.
Yeah, but the line item's actually at the top of page 41. But then the backup is page 47, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
$35,000.
Yeah, and Dan, I mean, it looks like, I mean, the city is to take over the existing streetlights from Farmingdale Drive. I mean, and then it's also considered to be private area. So are we now incurring the cost that the apartment management should be taking over? I'm just trying to understand why.
I think that's it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
In our opinion, in the municipal services philosophy, if it's in the parkway, it belongs to the city.
Okay.
Okay? We had a similar situation back probably 4 or 5 years ago on Portsmouth, where we had the same situation where these lights, this lighting system was put in, there were shorts in there, and all the shorts were leading back to individual units. So I forgot, there was five homes that had meters, were basically on a circuit breaker, and the circuit breaker would trip from the right-of-way due to some fault potentially, and until to the point where they wouldn't turn on, like the city hall lights in here. So the same thing has happened on Farmingdale, where these lights are now not working at all.
Okay.
They have tried to identify the problem. Number one, the lights are outdated. Well, they replaced them. They did try to put a valiant effort in it to replace them. The wiring that's in place is no good. Consistent ground faults. I would not even try to go in there and repair it, because to repair it is just going to be ongoing concerns. The lighting that's in there is not part of any standard. We don't even know, who the manufacturer is. When we put in lights, we standardize them. We standardize them either to the entire subdivision or to what the city currently uses. In this particular case, we would remove, I think it's up to 6 there. There's
Yeah,
one
about
that's
6.
debatable that we haven't really nailed down to where the wiring is coming from. Well, basically, we would remove all those lights, give them back to the association, or basically scrap them if they don't want them. Number 2 is we would put up the aluminum 25-foot lights up to 4. So we wouldn't be putting 6 back in place because we don't need them.
Okay.
If we can get away with 3, we're going to try to go with 3. There's currently an existing ComEd light pole on the corner of 75th Street. We want to evaluate that to determine whether or not we'll ask ComEd to remove that so we can put one of our standards there, since it's a little more pronounced, if you want to say.
But they're wired to the apartment building now. Is
That's
that going to
correct.
stay that way, or
No,
no? That
no,
will.
they'll all get eliminated. We will set a separate pedestal with the direction of ComEd where to put it, and run new cable and unit duct. So that's the goal.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in front of an apartment complex that had a few incidents of catalytic converters even being stolen. So it's brings a safety aspect
Might need
to it.
put up 5 lights then.
So we
instead
might
of
need a
4.
few more. So, but yeah, the lines are buried under asphalt, unfortunately, and they're going to be digging up a pavement to put in. So.
Okay. Thank
Any
you.
more questions on that? 35,000, okay. Moving down to contractual services drainage projects, 115,000. for the annual rear yard, city cost, Farmingdale Drive, and grates and fences on Portsmouth.
Mary?
Yes.
Just Dan, clarification, should that be Sawmill Creek instead of Farmingdale Drive? Because Farmingdale Drive is what we just talked about, the light replacement. And the backup is showing Sawmill Creek, this basket drainage maintenance.
That's different.
Page 49.
Farmingdale Drive, Darien.
Yeah, well, it says Farmingdale, but the backup says Sawmill Creek.
You know, it's Sawmill Creek, but it's part of Farmingdale.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
That's how you're looking at it, yeah.
But it's one project, that's just the,
One
okay.
project, just,
Okay.
yeah, maybe for consistency, it's either one or the other, but
That's
I
fine.
look at the creek and Chris looked at it, you know, where the subdivision was, so.
Okay. Any questions on any of those projects? Tom
How
Belzak.
does the rear yard drainage backup look this year? How many houses do we have?
You know, we have probably about up to 12 potentially. Unfortunately, I don't have good information on what it's going to include. If you recall, 2 years ago, or prior to us doing all those this year, we had information from almost 2 years and we were able to accumulate. Due to the snow cover this year, we weren't able to get out there yet in many cases. So someone took a conservative approach and said, okay, this is what a good average was. That's why we put these monies in there. We have them targeted. It's just with the snow now, and finally it just started thawing. Now we just had the ice again. So it's a little deceiving to look at ice with the rain that came and say, okay, you qualify. So we have to, you know, we have to do some due diligence to that, but we feel fairly comfortable that the number in here is good. If we have an inventory, then we'll carry on for next year.
So this is a guesstimate for about 12 projects.
Correct.
Yeah, and what is it? I've got someone in Cambridge Drive, a good friend of mine, and his neighbor built up his whole backyard. And now, his yard now is flooding dramatically because of the built up of the neighbor next door. So all the water's now sitting down, and then the utility boxes get 2-3 feet of water covered. And what's he supposed to know with this? And this neighbor, I mean, never had an issue before until the neighbor built up the yard.
Unless somebody can prove that through an affidavit, in this case, that he had raised his property, we'll double check a permit, but typically we wouldn't let anybody, it doesn't sound familiar.
Okay.
Typically when somebody wants to raise the grade on a property, anything more than 4 inches, we will require a topographical survey. A topographical survey will also include probably anywhere from 2 to 3 homes adjacent to that property or downstream.
Because I was over there today, it's a good foot, he raised it, at least a foot.
Okay, again, we have to.
And put a fence around it.
Pretty recent, Eric, you think?
Yeah, it was
Within a year?
year and a half ago.
What do you do, Eric? Put additional dirt down
Yeah.
and then sod over that?
Yep. And build up a big retaining wall and stuff and built it way up.
Number one, we'd have to take a look at it.
I'll
see
come
what the
by and
cause
bring the
is.
address to you.
See what the cause and effect is, see if it was permitted. If there's a negative effect, then, you know, somebody's gonna have to come forward with some type of affidavit. We, the city, can't go out there and just say,
Okay.
you know, unless we had records, more than likely, we don't have records
Yep.
that indicates what the topographic survey was, or the topographic grade was. So it's very difficult for us to go in there and prove something like that.
Okay, all right, I'll talk to you on that one. Thank you.
Going back, any other questions on the drainage projects? For 130,500? Okay. We'll move down then to 4815, equipment, with the discretionary of $495,000.
Mary, I think we
Yes.
skipped.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Tree trim.
Skip tree trimming.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make.
No,
a
no, back
comment.
to tree trimming. I was looking over to the, yes.
And I don't have, in particular, what I want to discuss is tree trimming, the actual trees, the removals, and the stump removal. I just had a courtesy call from Homer Tree this afternoon, and they have provided that courtesy call that they will not be renewing their extension for the contract, which is coming up for next January. Typically, we'll be looking to bring that back to the city council in August. So our representative just called me and said that the pricing is going up. At the pricing they're at right now, and the example is, I think they're $55 per tree. They are actually losing money due to fuel costs, so on and so forth. So again, my thought process was to have him provide us a email with a counter offer, and then staff was gonna take a look at and decide whether or not we should go out for additional, go out for bids or try to negotiate with them. And that negotiation would be based on bids that have currently been open. It's my understanding that tree trimming has skyrocketed up to $80 per tree. So I can't even give you that cost right now without doing some due diligence, but we do have to put a little marker to that one, and I'll be putting revised figures to that this week yet. Yeah, it's up to 100 in some cases.
Wow.
So, yeah, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I just found that information out, so I'm waiting to do some additional work.
As we go through that, Dan, I know we've got budgeted for 1,750 trees. Is it possible to extend it out a year and reduce the number? Or what are your thoughts on
I
that?
would not want to do that. I think the program that we currently have in place, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's optimal. Could it be better? Yes, but to reduce it, I think would be just an alarm. And the alarm would be the trees tend to grow rather quickly, especially over the roadways. And when we start having trees that are interfering with vehicular traffic, buses, UPS trucks, larger trucks, snow plows, there's damage that will occur, especially with the, during the winter. In the summer I call it the summer, the leaves obviously foil out, and on the resident side or the sidewalk side, those we tend to have a lower canopy. Then we have the issue of those tree branches that are hitting residents in the face. For the
Answered.
Any other questions on tree trimming?
So you're gonna get back to us with additional figures, Dan?
Yeah, I'm gonna
We'll
do
make
some
a decision.
budgetary figures and see if we have the opportunity to maybe create some negotiation prior to.
Okay.
And if not, Dan, we'll probably update this anyway because we know the number's low.
Right.
Even if you're not able to get a price, you'll come up with something for budget,
Yes.
okay?
So that'll go on the list of a revisit?
Yes.
Okay, along with the AED machine.
And I just want to mention that's a great investment. When you walk through Darien, you see the trees being trimmed, especially when you're selling houses and real estate. You go to an unincorporated area where there's tree branches on the sidewalk all over the place. So it does really give a nice view, a nice look to the city when those trees are properly trimmed, especially you're walking, hiking.
75th Street.
So.
I constantly brag about that, but when you drive down 75th Street, especially on a nice summer evening, you just see that whole canopy, how even it is, and so it's something, that's an aesthetic look for the city, yes.
Okay. That being said, thank you. We'll go on to equipment for $495,000.
Yeah, and I've got a question on that first one. Dan and Chris, this is the one I brought to your attention. I think there might be two pieces of equipment with this, if you look on page 55. I mean, are we talking about one piece of equipment here or two? Because I think, wasn't it, we weren't sure what the pricing was gonna be, Chris, or something, and
That's further down, that's not maybe my.
Track list, yeah.
So, yeah, well, the price is the 250 is
Yeah.
the correct price. So they do, on the quote itself, he lists two different machines, one being a tier 3.
Yeah.
And the other one is a tier 4, so that's just the difference between emissions. And he can't guarantee that he has the tier 3 or not, so when I go through, if you look at the ticker that I have on the far right side, where I've
Yeah.
added up the prices, you'll see I only
picked.
included the
Oh,
143.
okay.
And
Got it.
then the rest is
Okay.
all options and then a contingency.
so the rest of it is
Yeah.
options. Okay,
Yep.
all right, thank you.
And that refers all again to emissions, which case.
Expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do have another change. We just got notified by the manufacturer, Chris did a couple days ago, truck number 110. That's the 9-ton dump truck. We need to up that by 42,000 plus 2,500 for a total of 305.
So this is gonna do more than the sidewalk plowing, it's gonna actually do grass cutting too?
I'm sorry, you're back on the first one, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, I mean, cause it says sidewalk plow for 250, but it's more than a plow.
Yes.
Okay,
It does have the dual capabilities, yes.
okay.
I was gonna ask, obviously, this is for the budget for next year. Is there a way that we can order this now or get this to city council?
That's what, it
Where
doesn't
I'm
make
coming
it.
from with this, because with all, or
Microchips and everything else.
And Chris, go ahead, you can tell them what they told me.
Well, so if you're talking about the sidewalk plow,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry,
are you?
either one.
Okay, so with the
Both.
sidewalk plow, I could definitely reach out to him and find out
Okay.
anything about that. I don't know specifically with the truck itself. So right now, basically, the indications I'm getting is the same company that we're getting the quote from for the large truck. We have 2 trucks currently on order that we ordered in April of last year. So April of '21 for the current year's budget. We'll be lucky if we see one of the trucks before May 1st. And then we'll be lucky if we see the other one by the end of the year of 2022. And realistically, if he said they are taking, basically right now, it's a wait list order. They're taking an order and basically, from the sound of it, you're probably looking at the truck actually not being produced until somewhere in Q2 or Q3 of 2023. And that's from just the truck manufacturer. It then has to go to the equipment manufacturer and get upfitted. So honestly, realistically, when you see the truck, I don't know. My opinion, if it looks like if it looks like it's gonna pass, I would get the order in as soon as possible. At least from the side on the truck equipment part, he's kind of said it doesn't look like they're talking about any increases. The truck itself, the cab and chassis, the indication I'm getting from them is that they're talking about the possibility of quarterly, basically quarterly raises on the truck, even if you have an order placed and you have a contract with them. They can't guarantee prices. They don't think they're talking about significant increases at that point, but they really have no clue. And it's all related, as everybody knows, it's all related to the supply chain issues, chip shortages, all that stuff. And so every time you hear them say, oh, there's an end in sight, I mean, how can anybody know that, realistically?
Chris, if I'm not mistaken, I think also you told me that there's some clauses now they put out there that they have the right to raise prices.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They basically, the truck manufacturer has basically indicated, even if you get an order placed in, they're talking about possible quarterly increases, basically surcharge pricing increases to whatever you order.
Which has happened already, Ted, if I may.
Yeah, on the 2 trucks that we have on order right now, the one truck that we're gonna get, hopefully maybe by May 1st, they increased, there was a approximate $1,500 price increase to just on the cab and chassis. And on the other truck that we won't get until maybe by the end of the year, they increased because they came out with a new model in the meantime, and it basically stuck us with about an $8,500 price increase.
And did we put that, did we forward that for budget for accounting purposes? I don't see it.
Did we do what, Dan?
Did we take that truck that we're not gonna get potentially till after May, did we stick it in this budget then?
Yeah, any truck that was on order that we didn't get yet, we put into this new budget.
That was not in there. Was that the water? I'm sorry.
No, you have, no, hang on, so you have. $109, so it's in
There's
here.
one more.
It's in here. So it's that one, and then,
That's meant to be in this fund, or will it be in the water fund?
you have 2 in the water fund right now that are on order that we probably won't get before the end of April.
And we put those back in
They
for
should,
next
yeah.
year.
And this one's for a 9-ton, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're getting 2 9-tons. We got them on order. We don't know when we're gonna get them. When's our next 9-ton coming up? Are we at a rating of 79?
So right now, the truck, 110 is honestly, that's, it's just shy of the 75 rating. But seeing basically what I told Dan is, seeing how long they're telling us, the order time, the lead time is, this truck has already been, this truck 110 has been into Rush Truck Center three or four times already this winter. Basically, we out of the first 4 snowfalls that we had, we got to use it for not even 3 hours.
No, Chris,
Yeah.
I'm not worried
Yeah, I
about
don't,
that.
the next truck, I'd have to go back and look to see when the next truck is up, and it might be in the 3-year projection. I'd have to look
The
back.
only
and see.
reason
Chris, some of these, I'm sorry, some of these we listed here, the trucks, even if we're not gonna buy those, so the council could see, as I'm seeing one,
Yeah, so truck 103 is
yeah.
anticipated in '25. And so, again, and basically I mean, so what we're seeing is we went from a truck on another 9-ton truck, you know, there's a little bit of difference because the 9-ton truck that's being proposed, Unit 110, has a chipper cap, and so it has a couple different things that we may look at, but all things aside, they're relatively equal because we have an underbelly scraper on the one that's on order. So let's just call them, I mean, we went up $70,000 potentially. That's a substantial, you know, increase, and I can't.
Because all my recommendation would be is if we're gonna be, obviously we're doing the right thing, we got them on order, we're at the mercy of whatever we're gonna get. But the one for fiscal year ending 25, you might wanna look at it in 24, because it may not come into 25. You know what I'm saying?
That's what we're basically trying to do.
And going back to the track list, okay? If I was in your guys' shoes, I'd see if you can get that thing in as fast as possible and see if we can pay for it even this year. Because we don't know what's gonna happen. We really don't when it comes to these vehicles.
Ted, are you saying the 9-ton, we might as well put in next 23?
Yeah.
So,
You know?
So are you, make sure I'm understanding, are you saying to try to order 2 trucks in '23?
Put it to you this way, if we've got one that's coming up in 25, okay, you might want to ask, you know, put it in 23 at the beginning of it, so we pay it in 24, even though it's supposed to be for 25. Do you see? Because we don't know.
I mean,
You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, if we move a truck, since this is a 3-year budget, really, if you move a truck from 25 to 23,
It's not gonna
it's
change.
immaterial.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
the bottom number, I think that's a really good idea, given what's going on.
they're similar enough in the equipment, because both trucks are used for chippers, so they would both have chipper caps. They would basically be, I mean, honestly, having them done at the same time for controls and everything for operation side makes things a lot easier, because even sometimes year to year, there's slight differences, so one guy gets into a truck, so yeah, I mean, I can have them duplicate the quote basically, and
And the rating's pretty consistent.
Here's the other thing that goes with this, okay? We get new trucks, we get them, we know we have them, we know we're set. At the same time, these older trucks, which normally don't get any money out of them, there's gonna be somebody out there that's gonna need them. We might get a little bit extra money on those.
well, yeah, and if anybody's paying attention to what the used you know, car and truck value is right now, those prices are big.
Well,
yeah.
you just beat me because I was thinking with the labor shortages, and you just talked about how Homer's got to raise their prices on the tree trimming because of thing. Are there any businesses that are going under that we might be able to capitalize and see if we can, you know, buy any of their used equipment to obviously at a little lesser cost, and it's obviously used equipment is available now.
Probably the county.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean.
It's a stretch, it's a reach, but it's an idea. So.
Is, you know, where do we go? Where do we go? Who do we find? If somebody's, you know, like Homer, for example, I'll just use Homer or a tree, any type of tree service. We don't need those types of trucks.
What about the big auction
Well, I wasn't
places,
using-
like
I
the
wa-
one on out on 80?
Well, I wasn't saying Homer. I was just saying. I was just
Yeah.
No, I was just using an example.
Right. Okay.
Of the types of equipment that's out there, what needs to get fabricated. I would never, ever buy a snowplow from an auction or to the company. So
Right,
if
you
it's
gotta
an
buy new.
auction,
You have to buy new. You don't want somebody else's problems. You never know what's gonna go on with it.
I mean, even our trucks, the plows that we get, they use them more than
Well,
likely, they don't
if-
use them for plow trucks, they use them for dumping services.
Well, what I'm saying is, if somebody had a 2019 truck, we'll say 2018, okay, and they went under, they're going out of business and they're going under.
They're going out of business.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder, is there any businesses that are going under that might have newer equipment that we can capitalize on?
They're gonna go go through an auction.
They're going to go through an auction, yeah.
So Ted, I want to understand what you're saying. The 9-ton that we have budgeted for 25, you want us to put that in this current year's budget, 23?
You could do it this year or you could do it next year, but I'm telling you to do it a year ahead.
Like Brian said, it's a 3-year, really doesn't matter. We could do it this way then if we order it.
I would put in 23, yeah.
I would just buy it now if that's the
Guys,
direction.
I'm
Because
just telling you,
costs are just gonna continue to go up.
that's the first thing. Second thing is that we lose one of those trucks. That's when people start saying,
Yep.
well, where's my snowplow? What's going on? You know, we don't want to go through that nightmare.
So Chris, what we'll do, we put the truck 103 9-ton dump into,
We'll double check it, discuss it, make sure that we got the right vehicles and, you know,
Okay.
before. Yeah. So let's just get all the figures.
So I've got it on the list to revisit equipment 30-4815 about the potential of adding another 9-ton dump truck. And we've already know that we're, page 61, the price has gone from 235, did you say, to 305?
Yes.
Okay.
No, the one is, the one that we're proposing went from we had a budget price of 260. That one went to 305.
Okay.
The 235 is
Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry, Mary, that's the one.
Okay.
So it's going up 45,000, so you're looking at a 19%, 19% increase.
so instead of 495, you're looking at 540.
Okay. With the potential of adding another truck.
Of adding,
But you're saying too that, okay, the prices as they appear, we're not locking into prices when ordered, they're subject to change. So, okay.
Yeah.
Tom, do you have anything?
So, following up on what Ted said, there's 4 items in here for the year 24. A 1-ton pickup, a McLean sidewalk plow, a 1-ton dump plow truck, and a concrete mixer. Are any of those items going to take over a year? And if they are, is
There
that
you go.
something we should be looking at now?
Right.
We'll do our homework and take a look at it, see what we can truck.
I mean, yeah.
I don't wanna jump the gun and say that we should order everything, because that's just gonna go, and with our reading
No,
scale.
but we got
Yeah, I
2
understand.
months before the budget's final, so we got time to do it. But I'm
Right,
just saying, it's something to
right.
investigate now. What is the time frame on these things? Is
Especially-
it something to put it in this year? So if we're not paying for these things till we get them,
Oh,
correct?
you're exactly.
So
Does it go in this year's budget then, if it's
Piggyback
not
off
gonna
of
be
Tom.
received
Yes.
until?
it will.
If we're looking at just a regular, pickup truck, yeah, we may be on a 4 or 5 month delay, okay? We're not?
Or longer than that.
Okay, so we're longer than that.
Yeah.
The point is, these specialty items and specialty equipment, we have no idea when we're gonna get these things in. So, if we're gonna do it, let's prepare ourselves for the worst and hope for the best, as I look at it. So,
Especially with the larger trucks, because if we're having this problem.
everybody else is.
Yeah. everybody else is.
Okay, so I think what the consensus is that we need to come back to this equipment budget. Dan and Chris, you'll get some updated numbers, and then we'll discuss the possibility of adding in equipment that's, was intended to be in the 24 and 25 budget.
Correct.
Yeah, if we could get a number for each one.
Yeah,
dollar amount,
we
whatever
did
you
have
add.
numbers.
Comparison and make
Yeah,
sure
we're
that,
good.
we're not pushing anything out. And
Right.
Okay,
the vehicle policy manual has worked out, in my opinion, very well,
okay.
very well for the time.
Well, it's been phenomenal. It really has been, but we're at the mercy of, the manual says it's here. Oh, when can we order it? 2 years from now, well, what are we gonna do?
I agree, I
So-
agree.
Any more questions on equipment for now? We will be coming back to equipment. Okay. Any more questions on the Municipal Services, Streets, and Engineering budget? Just to summarize, Dan and Chris, we need you to come back with us on item on page 40, item number 4263, the AED. On page 41, 4375, tree trimming. And then lastly, on page 41, 4815, equipment.
Correct.
Okay, so you'll come back to us on those items. Okay, I'm not even going to give a total because the numbers went all over the place. So, okay, we're all done with this budget. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, grab a snack, go to the bathroom. I'll see you guys back here at 8:45, and we will move on to capital projects. Projects Fund, page 69. Supporting documents starting on page 70 with the summary. But as far as the capital projects, we got revenue of $5,067,590. Then expenses, $6,083,365. Well, Mike, you've been traditionally talking about the summary page there?
I just have a minor thing for Brian at some point, just a couple
Okay.
$1,000.
Okay.
I'll deal with him.
So,
Mary, I'm sorry, there is one comment in the fiscal year 22 estimated actual. If you go down to almost the bottom, there's 366,000 number.
yes.
That number comes out, that should not be in there. And the effect is it adds 366 to the capital projects fund.
Is that part of our 500,000 contingency?
It was it was a previous year that was, that we spent money, but in the current 23, you'll see the 500 as in parentheses, that's what you're talking about.
So does that mean the available balance is now 10,309 something?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't update the total yet, I just made a hand note to remove it.
So it's same 366 would carry all the way through.
Pay for a truck.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Okay, well then we'll jump over to page 70. And stormwater ditch projects.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Okay, so we got a discretionary expense of $1,831,200.
I'm gonna summarize this.
Could you please, Dan?
Yes, in respect to the total ditch projects, we had, I believe it's 21 miles of ditches.
27, Joe.
27?
27.5.
Thank you, Joe, I appreciate that. I was
Who's counting?
thinking, but, all sidewalks, that's it. But, the ditches, we put a program together probably close to 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and this is the final portion of the ditch program, and we're complete. Okay? So it's a great accomplishment considering where we've been. Again, to see this part done, now it's a matter of Public Works and vigilant residents policing what people do out in front of their homes. It's been working out great.
And Dan, could you just clarify, because if residents are watching, there's ditches in backyards, front yards, this is all, just clarify what this is.
Yeah, ditches are basically what's in front of what we refer to as rural sections, where there's no curb and gutter. Curb and gutter is compared to ditches. So that's the main conveyance of stormwater to get it from point A to point B and out of town. And again, we've developed a program, catalog, and this will be complete. So now it's just a matter of ongoing maintenance, which is de minimis in the grand scheme of things.
So can we turn to the support page then, like on page 71,
Sure.
and talk a little bit, the specifics a little bit more
Yep.
on this first one?
So, page 71.
I mean, how
And then there's
long
maps.
How long has this one been an issue that we've had this?
Since 1969.
I mean, and what's the impact to the residents of this?
And not having I won't say puddling, water that cascades over driveways, culverts that are basically popping out of the driveways,
Okay.
water that does not run through the ditches, and again, across the driveway and across the roadways, which consistently deteriorates the bed of the roadway, along with the base of the roadway, along with the shoulders.
Okay. So this could freeze up too, right?
Yes.
Eric, we had to wait till the basins were built until we could develop a plan to do these
Yeah.
ditches, correct, Jan?
That's majority of it, yes.
We couldn't direct that water anywhere until the basins were built. We worked with the county to get the basins built. We actually had flooding. If you're familiar with Elm Street behind Hinsdale South, there were homes there that were flooded every year, and with the county, we bought those properties. And we had to wait until working with the county, we did the Crest Basin and
I understand.
Dale.
Crest Basin, Dale Basin. Dale Basin was redid.
Yeah.
The Crest Basin, those were the two primary basins, and then with the buyout of the homes along Elm and 74th, gave a lot of opportunity for that quadrant of town. For the other quadrants of town, it wasn't worth doing it because the downstream effect was still those basins eventually. So basically, we have two avenues for water to get out of town. Number one is everything that's east of Richmond, probably Richmond, right, Chris? East of Richmond flows back towards the east, towards Claret Hills Road. From Claret Hills Road, it goes back towards two ways, 69th Street slash, basically 69th Street through what's referred to as the eastern leg of Sawmill Creek. To us, it's referred to as the eastern leg of Sawmill Creek, as well as down Clarendon Hills Road, which is a major storm sewer, which goes towards Elm. From Elm, it goes back towards past the high school and basically releases at 74th Street and Elm. 74th Street and Elm is the critical junction point for almost everything. And then there's the Press Basin, which takes care of a quadrant of 67th, which Willowbrook, we take on some of the water from Willowbrook, and that's bilateral at 67th Street, so I'm getting too complicated, but the bottom line is that the detention basins all work very well. And now with this, we just did the process of doing that project at 74th and Elm with the native project, native plantings. So there's an elimination of fertilization on that portion, as well as some maintenance savings costs, and as well as for additional waters to be able to saturate those grounds, which will also help in the grand scheme of things.
So, once you're done with this, the increased water flow, then, we're not gonna create an issue farther down, are we? That all of a sudden it's gonna flood down here now? We fixed it here and now all of a sudden it's flooding down here?
No, that's a voodoo in stormwater terminology, to
Yep.
increase the flow anywhere.
Right.
The bottom line is we do not increase any flow. We maintain and or have reservoirs that are able to accept it and release it as the downstream allows it to.
Okay, so this will fix the entire problem, not just that piece of the problem.
That is correct. This is the last parts of the puzzle, and our goals always have been not to do the ditches until we do the roadways the year prior to.
Okay.
And all we will have now at this point is maintenance. When we took on this task about 12 years ago, we knew that, as Dan said at that time, tell me if I'm wrong, ditches last 40 years.
Easily. I mean, there's the only maintenance that we're really gonna have is as long as the policing stays in force. There may be some erosion concerns, which is just maintenance, which will be just minor. And there may be some pipe replacements, the culvert metal pipes. Those have a lifespan, whereas we've used a lot of HD plastic pipe. The HDPE/plastic pipe, there's really no shelf life on it. So, and Chris, I think it's been a real asset to the department.
Yep. I think the thing
Yes,
that's
Brian?
really-
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think the thing that's really neat about this, and some of you heard the story, about 8 or 9 years ago, Ted Schauer asked the question, Dan, when do you think we'll be done with the 27 miles? Dan said probably around 2022. Now, I don't know if he purposely worked toward that, but it's funny that he said that about 8 years ago, and here we are, 2022, and we're going to be done with it.
And the only thing that I have not included, and I reserve, I don't have any inclination to really press it, is Sawmill Creek itself. All right, Sawmill Creek itself is something that could be done for about $4 million.
We've been kicking that one down for a long time.
At this point, I have no intention of really introducing that because the benefits, bottom line is the benefits. It'll only give us a benefit of what's referred to as a 10-year rain event. A 10-year rain event can be categorized as a typical summer rain. So in that respect, for $4 million, we'll take opportunities and do some maintenance. That maintenance includes maybe cleaning out the mouths of the overpasses or underpasses and put additional riprap to stabilize the banks, in which case we've done quite a bit of them already as either priorities projects or as independent maintenance projects.
And the other thing is on these, as we do these ditch projects, we have old metal culverts all in these, correct?
Correct.
All right, and those, I got a lifespan of what, 20, 25 years, maybe 30?
They're probably more. Back, they were using different types of material. Some of it was, it wasn't really galvanized. We've seen lots of stuff, just metal, steel,
Right.
which has no consistency to be in the ground, number one.
Causes
from the
sinking when
lifespan.
it does give out.
Right.
Yeah.
So the culverts today, they're all galvanized. The water doesn't sit in them. The water travels through them, which is a great benefit, because if that water was to sit in them, especially during the wintertime with the salt residue, you would have that corrosion factor, trifold. You don't see that anymore. Plus the salt that we're currently using and additives that we're using, just the savings in that alone, along with these biodegradable solvents or additives we're using are really a plus too.
Yeah, and again, I'm just piggybacking off of this, is, we're talking culverts, what are 15 inches maybe, is the average on some of these ditches, or?
Average is about 12.
Okay,
but they
12
go all-
inches?
Yeah, we don't use anything beyond 18 without going into reinforced concrete pipe or, our goal always is to use plastic and as long as we can.
Right, and again, we're comparing apples to oranges, but remember when we had the nightmare on Walnut, Avenue and the bridge collapse? We had to shut that down for what, 2 years? How long?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half, and we had to go through, not only we had to go get county approval, we had to get federal approval because it was on wetlands and
Army
everything that
Corps,
went with it.
yeah, I think the Army Corps was involved in that one.
Correct.
And, that's, speak of that, we were ready to budget it for the following year. It's just, we were just a little behind the eight ball, if you want to call it behind the eight ball. One of these catastrophic rain events the damage you could do is unbelievable. Picks up roads and upheaves roads.
Brian, I know you've been patient.
Follow up on Eric's question, and Eric had asked, how this benefits residents. And if I heard you right, you were saying, residents have puddling on their property. But I've seen you fix problems that are much more than residents have puddling.
Oh,
Now,
it affects.
if we go back to Gale Avenue, I remember, it's more than puddling. These are areas that some residents have really had a lot of water because it had nowhere to go. So that it really is significant. And I don't know if it was underplayed when you were describing it. I want to make sure everybody realizes.
No, and again, probably one of the key things that I left out is, we had some great staff members that had retired. But when it first came on, the goal was to be able to see what our staff members could do. And, we tried a couple projects. We weren't very successful, but we found out where our talents are. And Pete Kliniak, who was a prior surveyor, we had that asset. We used him to shoot every single ditch in the roadway. We gave him the parameters, so we got shot grades. Then we looked at the shot grades, and we also looked at the backyards. And that's the real key, is looking at backyards to make sure that the water can flow from those backyards to the front.
Yeah.
Once we established that, then we were able to get the routes. So it was, and maybe I am underplaying it, but there was a lot of science that went into it.
And here's the other thing, one of the biggest benefits, in you guys reminded me about Gale, is one of the biggest issues with Gale was water would over onto the roadway, okay, so overflow. And you have that water sit there, it just eats the, road away. I mean, how many patch jobs did we do on Gale before we had to turn around and do it? Because you got to cut it out, redo it, and go from there. And it eats away the road faster than it's possible. So
Sunrise, Alabama, those were some key examples that we were out there on. Remember, middle of winter, we'd be busting out culverts because a couple of homes were getting ready to flood because the water had nowhere to go, and we had to, basically bust out ice with culverts.
Now, is it your team going to doing all these?
No.
So how does that work?
We just released the contract, and I think we already put it to city council for preliminary approval. I don't want to.
There are different firms for each, or?
No, it's one firm. We did a total package, and one of the, one was an option. I forgot which one was an option. Crest Road was an option, and with the pricing as it came in, we decided to do a wall to be completed with them.
But you oversee their work.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, we have a designated liaison for
Okay.
our departments.
Okay.
And his job is basically driving, hauling, checking with the vendor on measurements.
Okay.
And he'll carry measurements, quantities, any change orders, comes back to Chris, or reports to Chris. If it's something more complicated, I'll get more involved, but really, it's inventory process, and everything is documented.
You see any reason for any delays in these?
No, it's time.
Okay.
The prices are gonna keep going up.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if I probably had a little more foresight, I probably would have pressed harder to do them 3 years ago, or, prior to COVID.
But you think you can get all these done this year?
Oh, yeah,
Wow, okay.
yeah, definitely.
Well, Dan, again, they're coordinated with the roads.
Correct.
So that's how
That was
you
part- yeah,
schedule
That
those.
was right, but again,
Yeah.
just from a pricing standpoint, that is a little more, but that's the only reason I would have, if I had the foresight back then I would have probably pushed a little harder to get them done then.
Any other questions on the stormwater ditch projects? Okay. Moving down to the next area, sidewalk replacements, 4380, in the amount of 630,000. We've got the Clarendon Hills Road safety sidewalk in this.
Now, we're at Clarendon Hills Road.
And the 79th Street sidewalk.
Yes, want me to explain? Go ahead. Yeah, okay. Clarendon Hills Road sidewalk and 79th Street, we were in for a grant. Okay, so there may be some offsets. We're not sure what a grant, if we're gonna get awarded or not. But again, these are neighborhood, collector sidewalks that basically link up, whether it's schools, parks. So they're not just block sidewalks, they're considered neighborhood because they lead to, key outlets for schools, things of that nature, so I just wanted to clarify that.
And we did not budget revenue for the project, so if the projects came in at these prices, that's what we have budgeted. There's no revenue included to offset. If we get that, it would be.
So a
extra
grant
money.
would be gravy, but
Yes,
it would,
correct.
yeah, it's not, you're not counting on something we don't know that we're
Correct.
for sure going to get.
And what we'd like to do is, if this does get approved, we have a current concrete program contract in place already, preliminarily. That's all been sent to city council already. So based on if this does get approval for a budget, we'll see what opportunities there are to negotiate with the existing contract. Because the only thing that's not here in our contract is excavation for new. So that's the only caveat to it. But I know that concrete prices, I just heard, have just gone up now again. We're locked in already. So that may be a good thing. So I haven't put a decision, nor have I spoken to Brian in respect to this either yet.
And Dan, like you have done in other years, this is approved for next year, but if the weather's nice, you'll get a jump.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we won't get this far ahead on this one.
Correct, but there'll be some
Yeah.
expenses
Right.
probably to this year in order to move the project along.
Correct, yeah, 'cause usually, we were first kids out on the block to bid, and these vendors want to start, the work as soon as weather breaks, and typically we'll probably spend 100 to 125,000 prior to May 1st as part of the FYE 23 program, to get a jump on it and to be ahead for the road program at the same time.
No, I just want to say this is a huge benefit at the location at 79th Street and Stratford and Cass. You have 2-3 bus stops, and you have kids playing in people's yards, walking in the street all the time with strollers. So this is a great benefit. I'm glad you're addressing it. So my full support on the sidewalks.
Plus on top of it, it curves, the street does, so it's very difficult to see kids that are on there, so.
That in one portion, yeah.
Yes, Tom Belzak.
Just a question, if, once the Clarendon Hills sidewalks are done, is that gonna allow us to revisit a crosswalk to the park? I know we've talked about that before, and in not being good areas to do that, and.
I've included this, that there's some monies in here for this. So there's monies already that are allocated as part of this project within that line item.
Okay.
To do a crosswalk.
Do a crosswalk, right?
Great.
And the crosswalk needs to be decided. That's the only thing that's really, we talked about 71st Street, we talked about Maple.
Talked about on the streets.
Right, so, I just, again, that's something to be seen at this point. And that's
But it
gonna
would be
based
probably
on
one or
what-
the other, right? Because of the
Right.
two closest streets, well, one's right across from the park.
Right.
Okay,
So we'll take a look at it, see
Great.
what opportunities there are.
great. Okay. Any other questions on sidewalks?
On the sidewalk repair though, is that now citywide? So you guys go out and do an evaluation of the sidewalks, right?
Yes, sir, every year.
Okay, good.
There's a
'Cause There's a
criteria
few
that
in
we
my
use for
area.
that. We designate one employee for a liaison that, we don't have 10 people looking at sidewalks, we have one person, so it's consistent.
Yeah,
And we do a
good.
rating scale.
Okay.
Do you have a rating scale on sidewalks the same way you do with the streets?
As far as,
As far as condition of
Yes.
it needing work, right?
yes, there's a little bit different, vertical mismatch, horizontal, spalling, cracking, so mismatch, blah, blah, blah.
So if we come across some kind of sidewalk on a given day that we think is questionable, we just, ask you where that sidewalk is on your scaling? Or you just,
No, we don't have each sidewalk itself isn't cataloged like a street would be. So literally, like, we go down the street, and if we find, when we're there on that day, if we find a problem, then that specific problem, when it rated in order to be replaced or addressed, we document those ones. So if you guys, come across them or resident complaints, anywhere
Pass
in
it
the
on.
board, pass it along, we can definitely take a look at it.
Yeah, it's been working out very well. We'll miss a couple, or some are that are debatable. Residents will call us, we'll go look at it. For $25 for the slab, $50, we replace it because it's not worth that mismatch that's gonna only get worse within a year or 2 years. whatever the case is.
Okay. Okay, well, we're going to move on to crack and seal program. Any questions on that?
The only thing we're gonna do with the crack and seal is, Brian and I was having a discussion on it today, we're gonna move that over to MFT funds. At this point, I believe that that is an acceptable contract that we just entered into. It's a joint purchase contract with Woodridge and I believe the county as well. So there's several entities, and it was done under a uniform contract, so we're gonna take those funds and put them over into MFT.
Is this
Okay.
gonna be the first year we can do that with MFT?
The answer is yes, because
That's great.
IDOT has a certain format.
Okay.
So far from what I've seen, IDOT should accept it. If they don't accept it, the worst case is that it has to get transferred back into the general fund. And, we're currently using other items, and then we'll look for additional items the following year to, spend some more money.
I mean, that'd be under MFT, that'd be terrific. It really would be, so.
And Dan, that number that we originally had of 198,000, that was the preliminary number. I
Yes.
think the new cost is 220,700.
Correct, and that's because of the bid documents that we got. We did this right before the bid, and then it went to, it's already gone through processing with Municipal Services, so that just happened.
Okay, so it went from 198,
To
100 to 220, 700?
Yeah, I rounded up a couple
Okay.
bucks to make it 70.
Any more questions on that? Okay, we're going to move down to capital improvements unless someone has a question on curb and gutter. Okay. Capital improvements, $465,000. The majority of that being for the 67th Street traffic signal. Do Brian or Dan want to speak to that and the connection with Willowbrook?
Go ahead, obviously, 67th Street and Clarendon Hills Road has been, I'll call it, plagued for vehicular accidents over the years. There's been really no rhyme, no reason to some of them or why. The Village of Willowbrook and the City of Darien have expressed concerns through their governmental bodies. Staff has been directed to take a look at various things over the years. Willowbrook, as well as Darien, has done what's referred to as geometrical reconfigurations of the roadways, particularly 67th Street. Darien has also since enhanced the signage up and down Clarendon's Road. Solar stop sign, flashing stop signs also were installed on 67th Street some years ago. And the most recent, again, as I just referred to, was this flashing speed limit signs. One of the report is coming out, which will be coming to the Municipal Services Committee Monday, is the recommendations of CLOA. CLOA is the traffic engineer. CLOA did a preliminary study several years, I believe 2 years, maybe 3 years ago, and the traffic signal did not meet warrants. Also, that the stop sign, a four-way stop sign, did not meet warrants, but a four-way stop sign would not really be warranted for that section due to congestion, backup, stacking, so on and so forth. The consultant through this last round on his report stated that the traffic signal does not meet the warrants. So I want to make sure that it's clear first of all. While it does not meet the warrants, the city of Darien does have the opportunity to move forward with a traffic signal with no additional liability. In addition to, we have spoken to the Village of Willowbrook. The Village of Willowbrook is in up to a maximum of $200,000 based on a $400,000 traffic signal cost. If the traffic signal, there's also a caveat in there of $200,000 max, but based on 25% of total contribution. So in other words, if the traffic signal comes in at 400,000, the math is easy. It'll be wait, am I correct on that? 400,000. If it comes in at 400,000, Willowbrook shares 200,000. If it comes in at 300,000,
I thought it was 25%.
I thought you said 25%.
Yeah, that's right.
So it'd be 100,000.
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000.
Yeah.
Right, so again, if it comes in at 300,000, Willowbrook is only committed to 25%. If the project comes in at 600,000, Willowbrook will pay up to that 200,000 in that case.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that caveat is a little bit.
So if it came in at 600,000, they're gonna get 25%, they're gonna give us 150. So as long as it's up to 800,000, we're, max are gonna give us 200.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it says, I didn't have the math figured out for the percentages.
But do you think this thing's gonna go up to 800,000? I mean, we had such, okay,
No,
because
right
Bailey
now-
was, 750.
Well, originally, if we were doing it under a federal grants or federal protocol,
Right,
the cost would have been close to 750, 800.
okay.
Right now, the cost for the traffic signal itself are 400,000 is what has been estimated. In conjunction with that portion, there's also 50, we have 450 for budget. Of the 450 for budget, we, the city, are gonna pick up the survey. We need to have the survey completed. The survey will be completed by Christopher Burke Engineering. Once the survey is done, then it goes, that survey report will go back to the traffic engineer, CLOA, who also will design, prepare bid specs, so on and so forth for everything. The survey is critical to make sure that we don't, especially for the alignment with the sidewalks, ADA sidewalks, where PED signals are going, alignment, so on and so forth. The report also stated through CLOA that additional signage should be installed on Clarendon's Road, basically with an intersection ahead, 67th Street. I believe those were the signs that were just received today that you look at them.
Yeah, I looked at them.
All right, so those signs are going to be put up tomorrow. In addition to, CLOA also recommended tree removal. We have to do some additional tree removal, and so does the Village of Willowbrook. Chris and the superintendent of Willowbrook were out there. They had evaluated and determined which trees should be removed. I still have to touch base with the resident for the Darien side. This will be on the southeast corner. We have to take a couple of trees out on private property, which really are of little value, if any at all. So we're hoping that the resident doesn't have a problem with it. We don't foresee that. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what it's all about. So that's all coming pending tentative approval, that's all coming to Municipal Services. Monday evening is the engineering agreement and the IGA agreement with Willowbrook. So.
It's great. Yes,
Would
anyone?
it make sense, though, to do the additional signage and tree removal and see how it impacts the accidents at that corner? Because how do I get comfortable that a light's gonna actually make that intersection safer? Based upon what this consultant is telling me, that may not be the case. So I'm gonna spend all this money and not have a safer intersection.
There's an enhancement to one point, there's a couple accidents that had occurred that if a light was in place, should have prevented it. The trees, we're enhancing the sight line is all we're doing on the east-westbound leg of 67th Street. Most of the accidents that have been occurring have been on Clarendon Hills Road, and again, it's a variation of different types of accidents, but this is just another step for the trees to be removed so people can see further
Right,
out.
yeah.
Whether or not it has any impact at all,
But isn't there also, this is a budget meeting, not a goal setting, but isn't there also a possibility, though, and you and me have talked about this for forever, that you can increase accidents because if somebody blows a light or something else too, right? So just because it's lights there, it doesn't mean it's necessarily it's going to slow accident. You might just have a different kind. You might just have a different kind of
But
accident.
nine times out of 10, they will stop at a light, regardless. Right now, we have nothing that's buffering the traffic from north and south that prevents anyone from stopping. East and west, we have stop signs. North and south, we don't. Also, you have two municipalities that agree. They're willing to put up money and say, we agree.
I'm just asking. I'm just asking a question.
We agree.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't agree, Gustavson, but we have a municipality that's willing to put up money and say, hey, let's fix this problem.
And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't the police report on the last accident that the woman didn't realize that there wasn't a stop sign north and south?
Correct.
That it was just because she was going east and west.
there was a lot of, all these accidents, again, there's no rhyme or reason. It's a plague the way I look at it. With all the various accidents that have happened, there's no consistency. Last one, where the gentleman or the person that was heading southbound, how he missed all those trees and got into that person's driveway, and did a bunch of damage there. I couldn't tell you. No one can tell you. Is that an anomaly? Would a stoplight distracted him to see it? I don't know.
And
There was no intoxication involved.
I would think if a light were to cause different or additional accidents, Chloe would tell us.
Correct.
I mean, we would definitely know that. There are some times when there are configurations wrong and you have to do something. And as Dan said, this is just one more.
That was the first time I'd heard what Mary just said, and as soon as she said that about lady thought
that was the last one.
There is don't get me wrong, there is a sign that says two-way stop sign, but a lot of times when it's a busy intersection, you expect it to be a four-way.
Right. No, that makes sense.
So even though I've caught myself speeding on that road because the speed has been drastically reduced on that road, but I myself have.
Did you see the speed radar?
I have a heavy foot. Retired policeman Jerry Piccoli would attest to that. I'm saying that on camera.
As Mayor mentioned, we have put different ideas and money towards the intersection before, and sort of light is sort of the last resort, and we've improved the geometry. We've done many other things, and it just hasn't seemed to really reduce it as much as we like. We've had residents come in, and I think that was eye-opening for myself. If I lived in that intersection and a car accidentally ended up in my front yard, it'd be a little worrying some. But, it's always been troubled. The staff has addressed the best we can, and this is, it is expensive, as you mentioned, Alderman Gustafson. But I think, every life that we can help save, prevent, or injury is well worth it. And if the city of Willowbrook is willing to put in some money as well, they see it as a concern for their residents, I think it's a win-win.
But we haven't put all the improvements in that the consultant is recommending. We're just doing those now. So we don't know what the impact of those are.
When you say improvements.
You
it's
said
only-
additional signage and tree removal.
The two signs are really just an enhancement, informational. They're nothing that's gonna, in my opinion, there's nothing they're gonna be blurring out and say, watch out, there's a big road ahead, or, the trees again.
I can tell you this, I drive through that intersection every day. I don't think the tree is an obstacle to, obscuring the view. I just believe it's a dangerous intersection. And when an accident does happen, all of our police officers converge in this area, where we're spending taxpayer dollars too, with releasing officers to this area every time there's a accident. So,
Ted? Yeah.
I'm just gonna say this, that, I hadn't really thought about this intersection a lot until you guys brought it up. But one of the things I've noticed, and I've seen this a couple times, because I come up Kingery, and instead of going all the way down to Plainfield and turn right, it gets backed up on that road, because it's only 2 lanes, basically. And of course, I'll, turn off and go down there, but I will be behind some cars that will get up to that intersection, because they don't want to, waste their time, and they're either going to turn left or go straight, and they will just want to basically do what they can to cut on out. I've seen a couple times since we brought this up where they rush themselves out to try and get on there because they want to get home. So the point is that I'm looking at this and saying, at $450,000, if this could eliminate something that's going to take care of some, accidents going forward at 450 grand, I think it's a good deal. And I'll leave it at that, because Bailey Road, that light, when that went in, it was just an absolute, we didn't have a lot of accidents there, but people were rushing to get through it, and that was a nightmare. But in this situation, people are just wanting to get home and rushing through it. At 450,000, I think it's, like I said, it's a good deal. So,
Brian?
Yeah, Dan, also, I believe this, you mentioned this to me, the light would have sensors. So if somebody's there at midnight, they're not sitting at a light for 5 minutes, like if they don't have timers. Plus, they'll be able to set the traffic patterns and things.
Correct. Modern technology has done lots of things. In this particular case, what the traffic signals includes are what we refer to as the opticons. Opticons are something that preemptive, where the police, fire have the right to change the lights with their strobe equipment for access. That's number one. Number two is, and I'm not sure exactly how they're going to be placed or where they're going to be placed, they have what's like cameras, really. And what those cameras do, there's 2 types of sensors. The sensors in the ground, and there's cameras that are sensors also, which say, okay, there's a car coming. It goes into this queue through the computer that's off to the side. And based on if it's one car, there's no other cars coming north-south, it'll activate for a green ball. Depending on the traffic patterns, let's say 5 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the morning, Clarendon Hills Road is the busiest. It'll be programmed so that has the priority, and the people on 67, motorists on 67th Street eastbound or westbound, maybe waiting close to 2 minutes. So something of that nature. Sequencing has come a long way compared to where it used to be. So that flavor of it is also involved.
Okay, Tom Belzak.
Yeah. I've always been in favor of making the intersection safer, but to Joe and Eric's point, we don't know if this will work, and I'm afraid of unintended consequences in traffic patterns. And this all happens when people are going to work or coming home from work. If I'm waiting 2 minutes on 67th Street, does that mean people start cutting through Hinsbrook? Does that mean people are cutting through Willowbrook? Does that mean now the people on the other streets have problems? Are we pushing a problem from one spot to another? And I don't know the answer, but my question is, can we do some study on traffic patterns to see? I mean, potentially it might improve it. It might make people stop taking 67th Street and speeding down it, which we have a problem with as it is. Maybe they'll decide to go somewhere else. But that somewhere else might be 69th Street or 71st Street. And that's not solving the problem. It's pushing the problem somewhere else. So I don't have a problem with it. I just want to make sure it's going to actually benefit the neighborhood.
And Tom, I think that was one of the questions that was preliminary. I'd have to look for my email, but I think that was one of the questions I had preliminarily reached out to the consultant in respect to the roundabout and the traffic signal. What's the effect and cause if a signal is put up? And let me double check the answer to that. But
I say that also because when Chief Thomas was here, he said he did not feel it was a particularly dangerous intersection.
Right.
He doesn't know why. You know, it seems like when the accidents happened there, they were bad, probably because the cars were going too fast. But he didn't think the number of accidents at that intersection were much different than many other intersections.
With all due respect to the chief, I've spoken to officers who actually go out and attend these, go to these accidents. They agree that it's a bad intersection.
I'm just talking about
so
sheer
it's,
numbers.
it's subjective. You know, also the worst thing we can do is do nothing, right? You know, I understand the
I'm
cost.
not saying, I just don't
think the
want
value
to
of
spend
life is more important.
$450,000 to do something that doesn't work.
I think the value of life is more important than just a dollar figure, right? You know, so I think if we have Willowbrook on board, which you did not in the beginning from years ago, did not want to put money towards this, they're now willing to do it. I think it's a no-brainer, you know, to some degree. You know, it's a no-brainer.
If Chloe tells me it works, I agree.
Yeah.
But I want them to tell me it works.
But sometimes we have to go above and beyond what their measures are. Like, maybe it doesn't meet their measurements, but what do we have to say, okay, what do we want to do to protect our residents, right? You have bicyclists that go through that intersection, motorists, walkers, and you know, one accident that happened there, a senior got hit by a car crossing the street. So what we have to do is control the ebbs and flow of traffic. That's all we're trying to do. Slow the traffic down. You know.
I'm not saying it won't work. I just don't know, and I'd like a little more information. And I'm saying it, again, because now is High Street going to be the street everyone cuts off of 67th Street, turns down High, and flies down High? Now, then what does that do? Then are we putting stop signs in everywhere on High Street? I mean, I get what you're saying. I get this people have gotten hurt at this intersection. That's not my point. My point is, if we're going to spend $400,000, I want it to work.
We've already spent money on traffic studies. We spent some money on that already. So we're just chasing good money after bad, as Ted would say.
Good money after good.
So where do we go? I mean, we have a couple aldermen that.
We've done the studies.
Mary, can we take if you don't mind, take a straw poll, because this item was going to be put on the Municipal Services agenda, all three items, the IGA and the engineering for this.
The expense of that, you mean?
Right.
Okay.
And again, I don't have a problem with doing more research on this. I just don't know if I want to pull a trigger on actually putting in a stoplight until I'm confident that it's not, you know, I mean, we have accidents on Cass and 75th. There's a stoplight there. I mean, I'm just saying, I want to make sure.
There would be more if
spend
there
the money.
wasn't a light there, correct?
So what more
There'll be a
research?
lot more.
We've had a study. Hold on a second. So we've had a study, and the study said, well, you said CLOA did.
CLOA told us through the reports that it did not meet what's referred to as warrants or a traffic count. At the same time, it's up to the municipality if they want to enhance safety features, that they have the right to do that.
Okay. So what other study could be done, though? That Tom, you know, what more could be done as a study?
I think what Tom is asking for, whether or not the traffic signal is going to be a deterrent for motorists to be traveling through
Other neighborhoods, other streets.
I believe I had looked into that already. That was at the time when a roundabout was suggested.
Okay.
So I have to pull up my emails and I'll see what my emails are and see what the response was and forward it back to.
Well, you'll have that at the committee because you're meeting
Right, Monday.
But then we got a problem here. He wants a straw poll, but I mean, so you want a straw poll without us having people knowing that or not?
It's up to you guys, because I mean, you know, I don't want to bring this stuff to municipal services if it's not going to be somewhat approved, you know.
Well, I think what I'm hearing is majority of the council favors this. Tom has one question. I think if Dan goes to the committee and that question is answered, I don't see a problem, Dan, with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it sounds like it's.
Well,
I wasn't sure.
just keep this in mind right now, your committee
Right.
is the three people
The three
that
people saying
that
no.
that are looking, that's saying, hey, listen, I know it's an issue, I know it's a concern, if I know that the traffic light is the answer to it, and spending the money. But if you tell me that you're gonna put up some other kind of signage and cut down some trees, and that might, fix the problem, that's all I'm saying.
But the tree's not the problem.
But Dan, okay, hold on a second. Let's circle back. Going back to the sign and the trees, I think Dan already indicated that those are minor
I
modifications.
don't know that. The consultant threw those
He
out
said-
there, so I
well-
don't, the consultant doesn't think they're minor, otherwise he wouldn't have said anything.
The consultant suggested it. What our
Right.
Dan Gombeck is saying is minor modifications. They're not going to be a drastic.
The minimus in the grand scheme of.
Okay,
spending
so I
money.
think the key factor here now is for you to go back and answer Tom Belzak's question and potentially Joe Kenny's question as it relates to the traffic pattern and are we moving traffic by putting in a signal?
I don't think no one will be able to answer Joe
Right.
Kenny's question. Will the traffic signals stop all the accidents? I don't know if anybody can answer.
No
It's
traffic
like
light
the-
stops
No,
every
okay.
accident.
So, but Tom's looking for an answer and you might have it in an email. Okay, so let's do the straw poll so that you kind of know where to proceed with municipal services. If anyone else is uncertain, like,
No, just to be clear, what's coming up on municipal services? Exactly what's coming up.
The IGA with the Village of Willowbrook, because Village of Willowbrook is taking it.
Is it binding on us?
Is it binding on us? They're going to their village board March
Binding on them?
14th, I believe.
I think there was an out in that agreement, right, Dan?
Sorry? Oh, there's an out, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in favor of it,
Yeah.
as long as we're not bound to it, where if something came up or I changed my mind
And-
and decided,
That's fine. I
okay,
just
so
wanna
I'm in
make sure
favor
that
of reaching out to them and working this out. I want to know as much as I can about this.
Sure, I understand.
I'm just not in favor of pulling the trigger at the second without more information.
I just wanted to make sure if there was a majority that wasn't gonna be looking at this, I didn't wanna waste the committee's time in bringing it forward, so that was my.
And what else is going to be at the committee?
The IGA and the two traffic agreements, or engineering agreements, which one is for the surveying, and the other one is for the preparation of the bid documents and the design for the traffic signal.
so there's expenses associated with that.
Yeah, that's, what are we talking about?
Now, those are 30,000, I believe. 30 to 40,000.
So the most we're on the hook for is 450, correct?
At this point, yes. I mean, like Chris said before, if the truck goes up tomorrow, I can't.
But the point is,
Well,
going back to
250,
Tom and Joe's
because
situation, I know where they're going with this one.
Willowbrook's given
We have an
200.
out on an IGA. If they approve of the IGA at Municipal Services, that we go into an IGA with Willowbrook, and then all of a sudden it comes back and we basically say we don't pass it, prices go from 450 to 5 million, we can get out of
Right.
it, and we're not gonna be affected, we're not on the hook with anything with Willowbrook. That's what they're asking.
That's true.
If they know that, I'm not gonna talk how they would vote, but that makes sense.
Right.
And that's what Tom's looking for, but Tom also, I understand where he's coming from, he wants to know, are we getting, what are we getting out of it?
Yes, sir. That's a question we'll be able to
So
answer.
I get that. I understand.
Dan, I'm sorry, is the out, though, if it's too expensive? It really didn't I mean, we're both joining this agreement with the idea of doing it. The
Right.
out is if it's too expensive, I
It's too
believe.
expensive,
But it's
exactly.
not, if we just change our minds, Tom, I don't think we get out of it. But I think if you do the straw poll, Mary, it'd be helpful to say,
Yes.
did this, majority of the council support it, as long as it doesn't have an impact on the neighborhood.
Especially with Tom's, yeah.
So I think,
Okay.
And I guess the question is, do we have to make a decision this second? And maybe we don't do it on next Monday.
Right.
Could we call a special municipal services meeting after we get our answers in 2 weeks?
Well, I don't think I
have it
want to
then?
vote, I don't think I want to vote on it until Willowbrook has formally committed to the dollars.
March 14th.
Well, the attorneys have ratified the IGA agreement, and it's on your village board.
But it's
and
not
board-
approved.
Well, they're allocating the money, that's why they're coming with the
But it's
agreement.
not approved. They can step away from it tomorrow.
But then we don't,
I want something, a formal approval from them that they are going to spend the money.
We're the lead agency on this, so we're the ones who invited Willowbrook.
I understand that.
What does that do, Eric? I'm confused. 'cause-
Well, because I want to make sure that I'm not on the hook for the entire amount.
You're not.
If Willowbrook decides after the fact to say no, and they step away, what if they
I don't think
vote it
Willowbrook's
down?
gonna say no.
You don't know how they're
but
gonna
we haven't
vote.
approved it
Hey,
either.
Eric.
So can they. That's my point.
Hey,
Why not
Eric.
wait until
But
they
hold
vote?
on a second. We haven't, but we're just discussing, nothing will be approved until April.
When
We're
we
just
vote on the
dis-
budget.
When we vote on the
So
budget.
we can change things.
So we can change things.
right.
We're only discussing, are we going to move forward with the municipal services meeting? Or like Tom says, we can't wait because Willowbrook's talking about it on March 14th.
Right.
So
And
we-
that's an easy question that I could answer for Tom.
Okay.
By going through my emails.
Okay.
So he'll be have a more educated decision by Monday for sure. So
Okay.
that's not a problem.
Okay, so Tom, asking you, if you get that answer from,
If I'm satisfied with the response I get, I'm in favor of this. I'm in
Okay.
favor of making it safer.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it is making it safer.
okay, and you need that answer from Dan. Eric? I need an answer. Are you in favor of, no. Tom?
We've been working on this for 20 years. I mean, you could logically think that we could put a stoplight 20 years ago. It might have maybe even had more effect, but we've spent a lot of time improving. We've really done a lot of work, and I think this is the absolute final thing we could really do to make the intersection safer. So I think we've already gone through those steps, and we're at the stoplight.
Yes. So you're a yes. Okay, and I'm a yes as long as it doesn't impact or push traffic in other areas of that community.
But how are you going to know that?
Well, I'm in favor of it moving forward with that information being provided to municipal services. But nothing's definitive tonight, Eric. It's just,
I understand
okay.
that.
Joe Kenny.
I'm the same as Tom.
Oh.
I'm for it.
Okay.
As long as we don't cause any other problems.
But Joe, I cannot answer that question that you asked if that light is gonna.
I don't want you to answer that. I don't want you
Okay.
to answer. No, that's fine.
Okay, it's about impacting traffic flow.
Impacting traffic flow through other neighborhoods.
Okay.
I just want to clarify.
Lester, you can answer. I think we know what it is. Yes, champion of the light. Okay, Ted Shower. Okay, so proceed.
That's fine. I just, yeah, like I said, so I have it-
And I personally appreciate it since I won't be at municipal services. And, you know, if you could share that information with all of us.
Oh, I will, yeah, I'll put it forward.
So that we know going into our meeting next week, we'll be revisiting this, but it'll be after municipal services.
I got a quick question. I
Yes.
know we're jumping down and we're getting towards the end. 1,510,000 for approximately 5 miles. How much has that gone up since the last couple of years? I'm just trying to get a number.
Actually, it didn't go up that significantly. What did go up, bear with me one moment, is the plastics. And in this particular case, I did a comparison on 2021 roads and asphalt, for example. In some cases, it was, there's different types of asphalt. The first one is the leveling binder. The leveling binder for this year was up 4.5% compared to last year. In respect to the binder course, it's minus 5%.
Okay.
And also the surface, which is the top course, that's also 5%, minus 5% compared to last year. What did have a significant impact was the thermoplastic. Everything with plastics has gone up significantly, and it went up from anywhere from 20% up to 55%, depending on which line item I'm looking at. Just giving you one example, 6-inch thermoplastic, 6-inch lines, those yellow lines you see on the roadways or white lines. Last year we were paying $1.31. This year is $1.75, and then the other one is the 12-inch from $2.62 to $3.75.
Dan, I think I might be able to shortcut this.
Wow, okay, we got some detail here.
Sorry, but it's past my bedtime.
I think you're losing us, Dan. You're
And
losing
making
us.
me go to sleep right here.
Dan, how much is a pound of butter? I mean, just saying, that's what
I think this is what you were looking for, Ted. Last year it was $1,404,000. This year we're looking at $1,588,000. But this year we're doing about 4.2 miles versus 5 miles. It's about a 20% increase.
Okay, that's
I think that's what you were looking
good
for.
labor and everything.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. It's good to have a CPA in the house. Thank God.
And how much is the screw? Nah.
Okay. Thank you, Treasurer Corin. Okay. Anything more on street construction rehab? Okay. Consulting and professional. Anything on that? Okay. Anything more on capital projects fund budget? Okay. So I will wrap that up for the evening. And that will leave us next week, Tuesday, March 1st at 6:30 p.m. in council chambers. We will be going over the police department budget, the water fund budget, and the water depreciation fund budget.
In
Yes.
addition, we are sending out two very small, the MFT budget and the special service area. Lisa will send that out and we'll post it, I believe, tomorrow.
So MFT and special services will be added to those?
Correct. What?
Yeah. Okay.
We don't have to build dams or.
Okay.
No, it's
And,
just a normal-
right, and then we look forward to hearing back from Dan on a couple items that we have, we're going to gentlemen, can we have a quiet for a second while we wrap it? Then we've got those items listed for you to revisit out of Municipal Services. And then we'll adjourn this meeting of our first fiscal 23 meeting as a whole. Good night, everybody.